The fact that they showed Franklin in the trailer for I think it was the second trailer, annoys the hell out of me.
So, look, we've got some exciting news in the filmmaking department. This week we got some updates on our good old friend 007, James Bond. We haven't seen him for a couple of years, so thank God we finally got some sort of.
I think was the end of the. Was it 24?
20?
No, it was definitely 23. I think
2021. I'm pretty sure. Hold on, I've
really?
I'll look for it later. I have the movie on Blu-ray, so I really don't know like officially. I'm pretty sure it's 2021 though. Was the last time we actually saw anything to do with James Bond.
No Time to Die was 21. Wow. I thought it was a lot.
That's
wow.
Yeah, where did the time go?
4 years. Which, to be fair, given that we're changing Bonds entirely, it's not like that's an insane amount of time to wait. Also, the difference, granted, this was partially due to the pandemic, but like the difference between No Time to Die and the movie before that was 2015 to 2021. So.
Sure. Right. It was a much bigger gap. Yeah, because I remember watching No Time to Die, and they pretty much brought that iteration of the character to a close. So I knew they were gonna have to like do something completely different. I heard rumors that Amazon was gonna pick it up and they were gonna turn like something into like a James Bond television series.
I also remember hearing that. I don't know why, but I do remember.
Glad they didn't. I'm really glad they didn't, because that would have been a horrible idea. James Bond is one of those characters I just don't think works as like a TV character. He is a movie character. But the news we got was, and I don't know if you heard this, that oh god, I always get his name wrong. Dennis Vaudeville. If he ever watches this video, he's gonna kill me.
I also can't pronounce it.
He's got one of those last names where it's like, I don't know how to pronounce it. You may
There's
do.
Gonna be one episode that blows up. He's gonna watch it, see you mispronounce his name, and then we're gonna be blacklisted.
I know this is how I ever get banned from an acting job again. You're the guy who mispronounced the director of Blade Runner 2049, Dune, and Dune Part 2. You mispronounced his name, and now you're no longer. Yeah, you can no longer work in the industry. Great, that's fantastic. But that he is pretty much set to direct the next iteration, or at least the next film of James Bond, which is a very, very, very interesting choice. I always thought, like, I love his directing style. I thought he did a great job with Blade Runner, and he does a fantastic job with Dune. James Bond, I'm not saying he's going to do a bad job at it. I'm excited to see what he does with it. But that being said, he's been crafting these grander scoped stories. Not saying James Bond can't be, but if you're walking into a newer iteration of the character and you're basically starting from ground zero and you have to work your way back up again, it's almost like he's only ever done stuff that's big. Like here's the way you got to look at it. It's, Avengers Endgame versus Iron Man. No, it's Avengers Endgame versus the first season of Daredevil. James Bond is Daredevil. It's really good, but it's more street level. There, other than the last, I think, like 3 movies in Daniel Craig's era, they weren't ever really grand in scope, like a big heavy.
They weren't
use
like
of
Mission
CGI.
Impossible style.
They weren't Mission Impossible level films. They are more street level, simple spy thrillers, and they're really good. Casino Royale is my favorite Bond film ever. But that's a lot more street level. And Dennis Vaudeville definitely goes for more of like an Avengers Endgame style, where it's just grand in scope. It's big. And you know what? Maybe I'm looking at this all wrong. Maybe that could work for James Bond. But I'm willing to just believe that he's going to have to learn on the job how to like craft a smaller scale story. Granted, that's the job of the director, but bring the vision of the script to life. But I think you could do it. What do you think? Because like
Well, so one of the interesting things is the main movies that we mentioned, that you mentioned, Blade Runner and Dune. Like you said, very grand sci-fi movies. Obviously, James Bond is not sci-fi. However, James Bond 2049 and what's it called? Dune all do have something in common. They're all adaptations. They're not original works.
Yeah.
At least in movie. Blade Runner, based off of a book series. Dune, based off of a book series. James Bond, based off of a book series.
Right.
So maybe that's one of the reasons why he got chosen, is that he's good at making adaptations. Also, I don't know his entire film repertoire. I can pull it up. Those are just the ones that he's most well known for.
He also did. I always forget about it, but he did Arrival in 2016, which was apparently really, really good. He did Prisoners with Hugh Jackman and Jake Gyllenhaal, and he did Sicario. I don't know how you pronounce it. That's one I never saw, but I always heard was also really, really good. But it's similar in line to what you're saying. I mean, those are.
Yeah, he doesn't have a ton of movies under his belt, but he has some big hitters like Dune and Blade Runner. Because he only
all of
did
his films are big hitters. Technically,
he didn't do, because technically aren't there two modern Blade Runners, right? 2049 is that the only modern Blade Runner, or are there two modern Blade Runners?
There's only two. As far as I remember, there's only two Blade Runner movies. I mean, you could count whatever the final cut version of the original. There's the original Blade Runner, and then there's 2049. There's like a extended version that they released separately, which kind of counts as Blade Runner 2 to some people, where it's like Blade Runner the final cut, and it's like an extended. I don't even know, 4 hour, 3 hour. I don't even know how long it is, but it's like an extended version of the original Blade Runner movie. 2049 was like the direct sequel, and I'm pretty sure like 30 something years after Blade Runner came out.
Okay. So then, yeah, he doesn't have a ton of movies under his belt, but the movies that he does have are pretty big. And again, those big movies are adaptations from books. So again,
correct.
It is kind of interesting. I think that, look, I'm going to be honest with you. One of my biggest movie crimes, I've never seen any of the Blade Runner movies. I haven't seen either of them. So I can't speak on Blade Runner. I can speak to Dune, though, and there is a really good human story in there. A lot of Dune is kind of down to earth for some of it, but again, it is very difficult to compare. Maybe this James Bond and this iteration of James Bond, they're going to go with a bigger, more close to a Mission Impossible world-ending threat than they have in the past. And maybe that's the idea that they're going for. Also, and I don't know if you saw, is it confirmed if he's doing multiple or just one James Bond?
That's what I don't know. It just said he was set to direct the next film. I would imagine he will do multiple, similar to what he did with Dune, because I find it very hard to believe that he's just going to hold on. Like you're not going to be given a franchise like James Bond or 007 and go, nah, one film's good enough. No, you're going to want to direct the whole thing.
Well,
one of the biggest, I think, like, regrets with like the Harry Potter franchise, and I'm not saying they don't get better every now and again, and some are better than others, and certain directors fit this better than that, is that they constantly switch directors way too much. Like the first two films are not the same as the third film, and then the fourth film and the fifth film are different, and then the sixth is different, and then the seventh and eighth I'm pretty sure are different. Like it's all different directors, I'm pretty sure, but there's not one consistent director in the helms. And I feel like that's at least one thing that the TV show might do differently, is that they might have a consistent showrunner throughout the entire thing, and they might have a consistent director throughout the entire thing. Some people might pop in to direct every now and again, but that's like one of those things where it's like, okay, that might be a bit better for flow. I think if Dennis has a thought out story, because I would imagine he's also going to write this too. Like he's not just going to direct it. He will probably write some of it. He might not be the main writer, but he will have some input. I would imagine that he's going to hold on to this franchise tighter than anybody ever has. He's going to get this franchise out, but he's also going to do it. God, I don't know like how to say it. I don't know how I feel about this. I genuinely don't. Dennis is just an
I
interesting
just looked it up,
choice.
by the way. There were 4 different directors for the Harry Potter movies. I'm not going to pull up and list each individual one
I know,
which movies
I know,
directed, but there were 4 directors for the Harry Potter. There were 7 movies,
yes.
4 directors.
I know for a fact.
No, there were 8 movies. I'm stupid because there's 7 books, 8 movies.
Yeah, I know for a fact that the first 2 Harry Potter movies were Christopher Columbus. And so I know that I think Prisoner of Azkaban was the only one where there was like they had one director for that film. And then I think it was Goblet of Fire, Order of the Phoenix was another director, and then David Yates took over after the 5th one and went he took over after the 5th one and just held tight and went all the way through.
Well, and I think another example of misuse of multiple directors is love them or hate them or resent them or whatever you have feelings on. The Star Wars sequel trilogy.
Sure.
You had 2 directors, but they swapped off. You started out with J.J. Abrams, went to Rian Johnson, and then went from Rian Johnson back to J.J. Abrams.
Sure, right.
And it definitely, whether you love them or hate them, you have to admit the flow does feel different between the 3 movies because you threw a different director in there in the middle. Like,
well, and it was
I think an objective fact.
Well, and it was going to be much worse for the 3rd film because originally it was Colin Trevorrow who was supposed to direct Rise of Skywalker, and then after everybody got so mad at Rian Johnson, they were like, "Oh, J.J. Abrams, come back and fix this." Like, screw Colin Trevorrow. I'm not saying Colin Trevorrow would have done a better job. I'm just saying that they definitely backpedaled on themselves with J.J. Abrams because I this is something that I do agree with. Force Awakens and Rise of Skywalker flow a lot better with each other than Force Awakens and Rise of Skywalker do anywhere near with Last Jedi. And that's because J.J. Abrams is in the helm. Again, not saying Rise of Skywalker still isn't messy, but they do flow together better than the other film. And so,
well, obviously, there is a difference between a writer and director because writer is who's in charge of the story, but you definitely can't undercut the role of the director in terms of like again, they determine the flow of the movie, the choices of the actors. A lot of the time they get to choose the details. The general story can be written out by someone else, but the director still sometimes has a hand in that. And then again, on day of, the director is typically that final say. The writer is gone. It's depending on the movie, the director's choice. So they can choose, okay, we're going to cut this. This is where this is going to go. This is how this is going to flow, things of that nature.
Sure. Right. I just thought it was an interesting choice. Not a bad choice. Until the movie comes out, I'm not going to, say anything bad about it until I see something. And again, I know the shots are going to be mesmerizing because it's Dennis, behind the scenes doing, his magic work. I just think that it's just an interesting choice. What's more interesting is the people who they actually have heading up to play James Bond. One of which you're going to hate me for saying I don't want to see happen because I do not trust this person to take on the persona. And the top-eyed person. Actually, we're gonna play a game. Who do you think it is?
It's based on the fact I already heard.
Yeah,
I already heard.
It's Tom Holland. It's Tom Holland. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. I don't think he fits the persona. And the only reason I say that is because of Nathan Drake with Uncharted. He played Nathan Drake, and he did a fine job. I stand by what I said. I always thought Mark Wahlberg would have done a better Nathan Drake than Tom Holland did. It's actually funny when we were this was your senior year and they had like released the official photo, or they might not even have announced the cast yet. I don't know, but they had announced they were doing it. That was my prediction, was Mark Wahlberg is totally playing Nathan Drake. Like that makes the most sense. He looks the most like the character. He could totally do it. And then they announced Mark Wahlberg, but he was playing the other character. I'm like, what?
He was playing.
Why would you do that? Like, you're never going to carry on this franchise long enough to keep Tom Holland around. I'm like, don't do that. It doesn't. Again, he did a fine job. But for James Bond specifically, I'm like, no, that really doesn't work.
It depends on what they're going for. Because if they choose Tom Holland, to me, even though he is now in his 30s, that still screams like prequel that screams, this is how you like, you know how the new video game that they announced is how he got the 007 name?
Yeah.
To me, that's what this screams. If you choose Tom Holland, you're going for a younger, maybe more reckless, more naive James Bond, which I think Tom Holland could pull off. However, I'm not saying he's the best choice. I'm saying that if you're going for a older James Bond like you did with like a Daniel Craig or something, who I think is the best, I think Daniel Craig killed it. Then Tom Holland is a terrible choice. However, if the direction you want to go with is a up and coming James Bond, and maybe you even spend 2 movies before he even becomes 007, that could be a choice.
I'm not disagreeing with you there. I actually think if that's the route they were taking, that's honestly kind of fine. I still don't like it. I still think there's other actors you could easily choose before you choose Tom Holland in that role. But there is, like, they haven't said what they're doing with this franchise yet. They've given us no inclination. And he's also not officially in the role yet, too. This is just speculation.
No,
yeah.
yeah.
The other, Harry Dickinson was another one that they said that, oh yeah, this could be an idea. And then I don't know who the other one was. I forget his name.
Yeah.
But I think he was a more unknown actor. But I was like, Harry Dickinson actually works really well.
If you look at a list of top British actors, because I think like James Bond has to be played by a British man, that's just, or woman, that's just a fact. Like if they were played by an American or any other, like, it's not even an ethnicity thing. It's more of a, like, you could have a black British James Bond. I'd be fine with that. Obviously, I wouldn't care. But if you had a black American or even a white American James Bond, I'd have a problem with that because that's not James Bond. One of the core aspects of James Bond is being British, not his skin color. But
sure. You can have Americans in the movie of James Bond, but they can't be James Bond.
Correct. You want to have a gay black woman James Bond? Fine. As long as she's British and can act.
That's all that matters. It's like Doctor Who to a certain extent. It's like, okay, nobody cares who plays the role, but she's got to be British. You can have American people in it, like John Scott Barrowman. You know who that is. He's Malcolm Merlin in Arrow. He's in Doctor Who, and he plays a very prominent character in the earlier seasons of The Revival, and he gets his own spinoff show later on. But he's American, like full-blown American in a world of British people, even in his own spinoff, and it's really funny to watch. But point being, as long as the Doctor's not American, it doesn't matter because everybody can enjoy themselves knowing that, okay, this staple is still intact. Like the thing that we created as a society, like the British created Doctor Who. I'm pretty sure the British created James Bond, right? And then they brought it over to America. Okay, that's what I thought. Like, okay, as long as that's intact, great. I think everybody's going to be okay.
Sherlock Holmes was also British as well. That's why, like, Benedict Cumberbatch playing Sherlock Holmes in the TV show. That's why I guess one of my few problems with Sherlock Holmes in, like, Robert Downey Jr.'s Sherlock Holmes, I think they're good movies. But again, I do think that him not being British takes you out of the character a little bit.
Well, and it's also funny because Jude Law is literally standing right next to him, and he's about as British gets. So
yeah,
it's just interesting. And as far as like eyeing people for James Bond, if they were to just not do like a prequel-ish James Bond film and like showing how he got the name and whatnot, give me either Henry Cavill or Aaron Taylor Johnson. One of the two. Come on, guys. Like they're right there. They are still technically young enough they could do it, and it's not going to matter, especially Henry Cavill. Like, I'm like, oh my God, he's not that old, guys. Just put him in the role. But it's like I would like to see those two take a stab at it, but well, I guess we'll see what happens because you really don't know. God, I love James Bond. Get that movie out now.
I know.
But that being said,
like, almost 20 minutes.
Yeah, give me the James Bond film right now. But we can't watch it right now because right now We're doing a podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the Nerdy Nimrods podcast, the only podcast in the world where your two favorite Nimrods talk all things nerdy. I am one of your hosts this evening, Carson, a.k.a. Juggernaut, here with my forever co-host,
Brandon, a.k.a. Parrotfish.
And today we are talking about a newly released movie called F1, or, you know, what it actually means, Formula One. I told people last night before I left my event, I was like, man, I'm going to see F1. And everybody immediately turned to me and was like, what? Why are you going to F1? What did one do to you? I'm like, guys, Formula One. It is a movie. come on, guys.
That's why it's specifically like the official title is the F1 movie. Like if you Google, I think like that is like the actual like official title is the F1 movie instead of just F1, even though F1 is the only thing you see on posters or advertisements.
Yeah. No, it's just funny. It's one of the I hate comparing it to it. It's like the Fan 4-stick title. It's gonna get a bad rap because of the name. You can't you can't escape it. But, you know, before we get into everything, Brandon, how you doing, my brother? What's up?
I'm okay. This upcoming week is 4th of July. I will be hanging out with friends, renting a boat, doing some fun stuff. So yeah, looking forward to that. A little tired. I got eaten alive by mosquitoes at the gym because all the rain and heat that's up here has been bringing them in. So it's been taking all my energy, but we're here. We're here to talk about F1 and the first 3 episodes of Ironheart as well. We're back to 2 topics this week and next week.
Yeah. You know,
How are you doing?
I'm hanging in there. I went to an event last night, and for whatever reason, we all were unanimous. We're like, we want to watch a really bad movie. Okay, that's fine. I love watching bad movies. You can laugh at and poke fun at it. What I didn't know is that they were going to pick Snow White, which I've already seen because I really wanted to laugh at it. And so I had to sit through the movie twice.
I'm pretty sure that's against the Geneva Convention.
That's all. Like, I have nothing else to say. I sat through Snow White twice, and I have to sit with that for the rest of my life. If there was
specifically the live action Snow White, you should specify, not animated Snow White, recent live action Snow White.
So bad. Like it is the epitome of a bad remake. I mean, it's not as bad as Pinocchio. Live action Pinocchio was dookie. Literally, Pinocchio sticks his head in a thing of crap.
Yeah, no, thank you.
It's fucking horrible. It is one of the worst remakes I've ever seen. But you see, I had to sit through that again. But I guess it was fun watching my friends react to this for the first time. I turned on Friday Night SmackDown. And so in the background of John Cena giving CM Punk the business, you're just hearing Gal Gadot attempt to sing. But yeah, no, I mean, some pretty good things happened though this week. Let's just jump straight into it. Actually, before we do, spoiler alert for everything we're talking about today. Most notably Ironheart, because that is a Marvel-filled property, and potentially there are spoilers for the grander, you know, over like future of the MCU, all of it, you know. And you know, F1 spoilers, whatever, you know, it's fine.
I mean, here's the thing. I think that you should go into F1. There are some, and this is like not a spoiler. There are some major twists in that movie that I didn't see coming that I think without knowing, like, is it going to kill your experience? No. But I think if you go in there not knowing anything about this movie other than it's F1 racing, I think you're going to have a better time. In my opinion.
Yeah, well, there are some films I've actually just started like to not watch the trailer for anymore because I really want to go into, unless I'm like overly excited about it. Like there's just some films I'm just not watching the trailer for because I just want to go in so blind to this thing.
Well, like they released the last trailer for the Fantastic Four movie that comes out in what, like 2-3 weeks. I did not watch that trailer because I hate last trailers. They show way too much. Apparently, you got like an actual full look at Galactus, which, granted, through the popcorn bucket and other things, we've already seen a full look at Galactus. But like, I don't want to go off on a rant here, but I am so upset that they released they revealed what why am I blanking on his name? The baby from Fantastic Four. They confirmed that Franklin. Thank you. Don't know why I forgot his name. The fact that they showed Franklin in the trailer for I think it was the second trailer, annoys the hell out of me, because we got confirmation that Sue is pregnant through a different trailer. That's fine. That's cool. I did not want to know that Franklin was definitely in this movie and would play a bigger part than I assumed. And also, I did not want to see Franklin. Now, granted, Franklin just looks like a baby, but Franklin Richards is one of the most powerful characters in all of the MCU. He is a multiversal threat. Correct. And so revealing him in a trailer like that really honestly ticked me off. Unfortunately, I did not watch that trailer, but everyone was talking about it because they revealed him. So I eventually saw him on someone's Instagram post, and I was like, okay, first of all, he just looks like a baby, so I guess it's not that big a deal. But like, still, that just annoys me. We need to fix trailers. Franklin, we can go on this rant on a different time. We need to fix trailers. Trailers are cut by trailer farms. If you did not know this, most movie and even video game trailers are made not by the people making the movie, but they take footage, send it to like a company, they cut together the trailer, and then it gets posted. Those people need to get their shit together, because I'm not looking to watch the movie in 2 minutes. I'm looking to get enough to get me hooked and tell me maybe a little about what the plot's going to be, introduce the main cast of characters, and that's it. I don't need 15 trailers, 15 TV spots telling me the entire goddamn plot. I don't.
Well, and there are some prime examples. Like, let's use a modern one really quickly. I know I'm delaying Ironheart, but you put me on this now, and now I'm gonna rant.
Sorry, I got really upset about that. No, and it made me think about it.
I'm gonna give some good examples here, but like the most modern trailer that I saw recently that I was like, that was a fantastic trailer, was Nosferatu. It did everything it was supposed to do. It did show some footage, but it wasn't enough for you to sit there and go, okay, they just told me the entire movie. They didn't show Bill Skarsgård's character of Nosferatu once in the trailer. I think you may have heard his voice once, but you saw his shadow once. You never once saw his character. You never once saw the makeup. That's something you want to reveal for the film. And that's why his character and his presence was so terrifying in the film, is because nobody had seen it. Nobody had a chance to prepare themselves for what he was going to look like. And you know, that's like a good trailer example for just like, they resourcefully used exactly what they wanted, and they strategically, like, you know, didn't show certain stuff so that it would be a bigger reveal later on.
I think another good example is the F1 movie. For me, honestly, I watched the F1 movie trailer. It looked like a generic racing movie. In fact, when I went to go see Mission Impossible for the second time with a buddy of mine, the trailer came on during the movie, and he's like, this is not going to be a good movie. He was like, this just looks like it's going to be all racing. It's going to be boring and generic. And I'm not going to get my thoughts on the movie, but I think that trailer did enough to make me interested, and also not tell you what the movie's actually about, because the movie is not just about racing. Spoiler alert, it's not.
No, not really. I mean, it is, but it's not.
I mean, it is. There's a lot of racing in it, but
it's not the center focus of it, which I really appreciated. Well, again, we'll get to that later. But like,
we should probably jump into Ironheart pretty shortly. But
yeah, but like, just going back to like, let's use an older example. Let's go to the 80s quickly, or sorry, 70s. When the first Alien movie came out, the trailer didn't show an alien. It didn't even show the actors. I don't remember. Maybe it gave like the lead actors' names. Maybe it gave Sigourney Weaver, and it gave Tom Selleck. Maybe their trailer was black space, and it did like the slow. You know how the Alien like titles reveal in the movie. Have you ever seen that, where it's like one line comes in, another line comes in, and slowly forms the word? They did that for the trailer, and it was dead quiet, and the only things you heard were, in space, no one can hear you scream. That's it. That was the whole trailer, and that's all anybody needed to get hooked into that film. Jaws did something similar. You hear the iconic theme music as you're underwater from the point of view of the shark, and that's it. That's all you get. That is what we need for trailers again, because it builds just enough intrigue to get people interested. That being said, I don't know if people can be interested enough by that anymore, which is why we get trailers like Nosferatu, where it's close enough.
I think, unfortunately, people are ruined by modern trailers to now that that's what they expect and to a certain degree subconsciously want. It's not what I want, and I think a lot of movie fans don't want that. But I think, unfortunately, to hook the general public and get them and get their butts in seats day one, as opposed to waiting for word of mouth week 2, 3, 4, 5. You have to have a trailer that shows you enough of the movie to tell you what to expect. However, I think that ruins the movie-going experience for a lot of movies, and Fantastic Four is one of those examples. Maybe they should have been the cold open, but
well, again, we don't fully know. We haven't seen the movie yet, but I'm just more because the last trailer with them and the marketing for revealing Franklin, I'm confused about the timeline of this movie. I don't know. Like what's happening anymore.
It leaves you, it does leave you with a lot of questions, which is good. I think it gives you too many answers to other questions that I would have rather have.
Right.
Personally.
You just answered mysteries that you didn't have to answer until the movie came out.
Yeah.
Deadpool Wolverine did the same thing with revealing X-23 in the final trailer. You know? But okay, speaking of Marvel, let's jump in. Let's jump into this.
3 episodes of Ironheart.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give my cursory thoughts as we always do, and then we can jump to you unless you want to go first.
No, I mean we're gonna have the same thoughts here. Just go ahead and start.
Yeah, I think our opinions are gonna align with a lot of people's opinions. Actually, that's a lie, because I think a lot of people are going to overly hate this show. Is this show Loki, WandaVision, Hawkeye? No. Do not go in with that expectation. This show is not Loki. It is not WandaVision. It's not Hawkeye. But it's also not Echo. And I think a lot of people are getting it twisted to where people are unnecessarily hating on modern Marvel projects that don't deserve it. Now, I think another good example is like the new Captain America movie. Was that a fantastic movie? No, it was not the best Marvel movie ever. I also don't think it was as bad as people are saying it was. So
it wasn't.
People are just they're taking okay to good Marvel movies and TV shows and calling them awful because they're not Endgame. And I think that's what a lot of people are going to be saying about this. For me, and this is again where we do kind of align both on our opinions and with a lot of trusted sources like Koi, is
all hail Supreme Leader Koi Jandro.
All hail. We have to give our cursory our cursory bows to our Supreme Leader Koi. I need to wear his Hello You Lovelies hoodies on one of these episodes to just further cement the fact that I am a Koi stin.
We'll tag him in one of the episodes eventually with you wearing the hoodie and whatnot.
Exactly. But anyways, it does get better every episode. When I watched the first episode, I was like, okay, this is decent, maybe a 5 out of 10. Mediocre. I am not hating my time. I don't feel like I'm wasting my time, but I'm also not gripped. I think with the second episode, it does a good job of showing you the first heist, the first technically the second heist, but the first heist with Riri, and kind of giving you a little bit more bonding with the characters and the crew and things of that nature, while also developing the story, introducing my favorite character, Joe, and things like that really do kind of get you interested. The third episode, I think, is definitely the best episode, and actually I would say was a really good episode. I still think it was far from perfect, but I think that the twist at the end of the episode really got me going with, oh my God, where are they going with this next 3 episodes? And that's why I do think I'm typically on the side of the weekly release schedule. I don't hate that this show is getting the 2-3 episode drops, because I think that the tone of these first 3 episodes of setup is going to help your enjoyment more for the next 3-episode drop, and I'm assuming a shift in tone, again, based on the ending of these 3 episodes. So I think that this is very middle of the pack in terms of Marvel TV shows, but I definitely don't think it deserves as much hate as I've seen it getting. But we'll get into more details of like why it's middle of the pack, why I think there's some actual pretty good stuff in here and stuff like that after Carson gives his thoughts and we get more into the details. But Carson, let me know. You seem to disagree with my Joe take, so I want to dig into that later, but give me your cursory thoughts.
No. I didn't disagree with your Joe take. I was agreeing. I was like, oh my God, yeah, no, he's incredible.
Okay, good. I was gonna say the best part of this show was the Joe Riri interactions. That was the best part of this show for me.
Yeah, and that's actually kind of a problem. Considering this is what I explained to one of our friends when I started talking about it, because he said, yeah, I heard it was actually okay. I'm like, yeah, and here's my biggest thing. It is very middle of the road. It's not bad. It's not good. It has the potential to get better because each episode has improved over time, but it hasn't gotten there yet to it hasn't gotten to like a low level where it's like, oh, this is abhorrent. This is stupid. Like, we're never going to watch this. It just hasn't reached the highest heights yet of, okay, I'm totally gripped. This is emotionally riveting. Like, they've had me hooked. And, overall, if it does keep improving and keeps getting better and better and better, there's a very strong chance I could see the show being a big contender for like some of those upper tier shows like Hawkeye and whatnot. I just need to see them improve and keep going. But
if they keep improving at the rate that they're improving, it could be up there.
It could, especially because they are dealing with certain themes where I'm like, okay, that's kind of interesting. We don't really see a lot of that, in Marvel today. Or
well, they're dealing with them in an interesting way. And again, we'll get into that, but
it's interesting. A friend of mine told me this recently, and I don't agree with him for every MCU film. But he described the MCU to me as the MCU is a weird franchise because he believes that all the stories are awful, but the movies are held up with good character and character development. But the stories of them are very generic and very boring and awful. I could easily see you making.
Is this
yes, I know.
Thing that, okay,
yes, you know exactly which one I'm talking about.
Surprising take. Yep.
No. But I believe that he's right to a certain degree. This show is kind of a prime example for that right now, where it's like, okay, this show has some good ideas, but it's got a really weird, mediocre, not so well done story, but it's held up by Riri Williams. It's held up by Joe, or, we'll say, I already said the spoiler alert, Obadiah Stane's son, Ezekiel Stane. It's held up by great character development like that. The idea that Riri creates her best friend as the new AI, and it's like exactly how Riri remembers her, and she's got the same personality as what she once was. That's a genius plot point. That's one thing in the story where I'm like, that's fantastic. I love that. Again, you already mentioned everything they do with Obadiah. Oh my God, everything they do with Ezekiel and bringing back Obadiah into like the story, into the fold in some form, and everything they do with the mom, it's all really good. However, that's a solid 35% of this runtime versus 75 wait, no, sorry, math is not mathing, versus 65. A solid 65%, which is, the heists, the hood, and the crew, and all the stuff that I don't honestly really care about that much. The hood, I'm getting there. And I think the final episode did kind of like give me like a glimpse of like, okay, I'm kind of there a little bit. They're giving a really good idea there, and they're giving enough intrigue where I'm like, okay, the hood could be really cool. Just keep leaning into it and it'll work. But it's I don't think that, like, okay, let's talk about this first. That's why the show's so mid for me, is because when the most important plot I'm finding very mid and mediocre, and then what they're trying to say is all like the sub B plot stuff is like really good. That's a big problem because you're focusing so much on this. And I'm not saying this is entirely bad. It actually got better by episode 3. they kind of have me interested and hooked a little bit, but it was like the last 5 to 10 minutes of the episode that actually got me there. So everything else that happened was set up, and with this crew, and we've had so much time with them, I don't care enough about them. The only character I think has any personality in the crew, I'm just being completely honest, is Hood and Slug. That's it. Those are the only characters that have any
Slug has definitely
personality.
been set up to be like the second like biggest on the crew. They've had the most screen time, I guess, and most personality. But that's also because I think the actor just takes up, they have such an amazing presence when they're on screen that I think it just draws your attention more and kind of makes you care more. They're also really the only one. Now, granted, we got like backstories with all of them, but I feel like we got a little bit more with Slug than the rest, because we got those flashes for the crew with like, oh, the Fight Club, oh, this, when Hood was going around recruiting. But for me, Slug was the one that was like, oh, this is like actually kind of interesting.
Well, it's not even like they're super interesting. They just look like they're having a lot of fun. And so I'm like, yeah, good for you. That's great. At least somebody looks like they're enjoying their time in this show. The rest of the crew, so boring and so mediocre. Even the Hood, to a certain extent, looks like they do. Anthony Ramos doesn't even look like he wants to be there half the time. It's so boring and mediocre that it bogs down the entire runtime. And anytime I'm with the crew, I just don't want to be with the crew. Their jokes are very corny. The dialogue between the crew is very lackluster. The way they all work together, they don't feel like a crew. Like when you operate as a crew, you want to feel like a team. You want to work together. Something I loved about the movie, I know you never saw it, unless you did, and I just don't know. Baby Driver, is that the whole point of the movie is that this guy is paying back this mobster like person. He's not really a mobster. I'm just giving an example. This mobster is robbing banks, that, and he puts together crews. He doesn't work with the same guy twice, but each of these groups come together. It's just one different person each time. They come in, they do a job, and they do these jobs, but they work really well as a team. And you see like these kind of team bonding things prior, like, they might go to dinner, they might go to lunch, or this or that. Reservoir Dogs does the same thing. You feel the interconnectedness of this group, even though they don't know their names, but it's because you see these like connections between the group. You feel no connection between this group, and you have no scene which bonds them together at all beyond we got to plan the heist. We are fully in work. The closest thing you get is the beginning of episode 3, when they have like the money guns and they're shooting them off and they're all dancing. But even then, to a certain extent, I'm like, that was really not that funny. It was very lackluster. Okay. So I don't know. I have a very love-hate relationship with the crew for that reason, because I feel like they could get better. Again, with the end of episode 3, it makes sense. But honestly, the only thing that really is elevated at the end of episode 3 is the Hood, because his friend was killed by Riri, and he finds that out. Or at least Riri didn't kill him, but she chose not to save him.
Responsible for his cousin's death, yes.
Responsible for the death. Yeah, responsible for the death. The crew doesn't technically know that yet, and the crew has no reason to care, because honestly, they don't. That guy was a jerk to them. They wanted to know what the magical presence behind the cape was, behind the Hood, just as much as Riri was. That's why they went through this whole plan to, like,
I think his crash out was valid. I hated when Riri was like, "Oh, what's your problem?" It's like, his problem is that you stole his cousin's stuff.
No, it's not. It's not that the crash out. It's not that the crash out wasn't valid. His crash out's very valid, but they still would have a reason to hate him, because like, why are you hiding so much about this Hood and whatnot? That's where I'm like, okay, so why would you at all want to stick around then after that happens? Like, okay, unless they just know they're gonna die, because he doesn't like leaving loose ends and whatnot. It's just it's interesting, because I really don't like the crew. And they make up so much of the runtime, and everything else is so actually well done. Like, even the writing, I'm like, actually, that's really nice. I actually will say, I think Riri is very consistent, though. Like, just as a character, Dominique plays her very well. Very consistent, start to finish. I don't really have much of a problem at all with how they wrote her or how they betrayed her. I think she's actually doing a phenomenal job. And she's like the one consistent anchor in the entire 3-episode arc, in all honesty.
I mean, the show is her show, so that makes sense. I'm glad that she is a good character that you can, I don't want to say get behind, because I think that's one of my I don't want to say one of my problems. She's a very hard character to root for, at least for me, because she is kind of a pain a lot of the time. Like, for instance, when she has that whole dialogue when God, I'm blanking on the guy's name. I'm pulling up the list. Cousin John.
Cousin John.
That's literally his name in IMDb, is Cousin John. When John comes up and has the whole thing of like slamming down on the table, and Riri's like, "Oh, what's your problem?" It's like, I get that that's her personality and she is kind of like on edge a little bit. But for me, I was like, girl, you just stole his cousin's stuff. We're wearing it around, talking about it, analyzing it and stuff. Like, that's none of your business. And here's the thing.
What do you think was going to happen?
Yeah, exactly. What did you like? That is a valid crash out. Like, what do you mean? I get that you're not going to sit there and apologize, but like, there's multiple scenes like that just like, I guess maybe it's just well written and that's just the way the character is supposed to be. But for me, it's like, it makes it harder for me to fully get behind like saying I love Riri Williams, because she is such an imperfect character. But I do think that is what they're going for. And if that is the goal, which seems to be, then they're doing a really good job with that.
Well, and we're going to talk about another film later that has like a really good way of showing an imperfect character, even though they're viewed as perfect. You know, Riri Williams is that, again, that's what I'm saying, where it's like a consistent, and I actually like what they're doing is like, she isn't perfect. She's not Tony Stark. Like she can't just do all of these things. She doesn't have the resources, this, that. Even to a certain extent, like her mind, like, okay, she is going to mess up. She's going to make mistakes, but that's because she's still technically a kid. I don't know how actually old Riri Williams is supposed to be.
I think she's in college. She's been in college for 4 years or 5 years. So I would assume she's in her early to mid 20s.
Early to mid 20s.
I will say, and I don't know if we want to go episode to episode with this. I'll leave that up to you, like we have done in the past. But one of my favorite lines was from the first episode. And that was, I can never remember the character's name, but he's been in multiple MCU movies as like the principal character. He's been in Spider-Man. He's been in, I can't remember what else he's been in. The bald-headed guy who's like the dean or principal or whatever. He was the principal at Peter Parker's high school, and now he's apparently working at MIT. He has a line in the beginning when Riri is fighting with the administration on when she gets expelled out of MIT, and he has I think it encapsulates how they are trying to portray Riri, and I think it is, she doesn't appreciate that he said that, but I think it is a very true statement that you are doing a terrible job of representing Iron Man's legacy. That's not the exact line, but that's like the gist of the line, is you are doing a terrible job. If your goal that you've sprayed throughout the cosmos is to bring up and represent Tony Stark's legacy now that he's gone, you're doing an objectively bad job. And I think that that's an interesting line as well, because flashback to Iron Man 1, Tony Stark was also a very imperfect character in a lot of different ways, but he was a partier, he was a playboy, he slept around, he was a genius. But again, remember how he got into the Iron Man position? He was selling weapons to wars in the Middle East that eventually came and bit him in the butt because his weapons got into the wrong hands and he didn't even realize. Tony Stark was also a very imperfect character. People only remember the good of Tony Stark. And I think that right now, that line is true for what people remember as Tony Stark's legacy. But they have to remember there was the time before he was Iron Man. And I think they're telling a very similar, albeit like different approach, same outcome with Riri, in the sense of all of this stuff right now is ultimately going to be forgotten when she becomes a hero. All everyone's going to care about is when she's world saving, when she's a hero, when she's inevitably in the Young Avengers, things of that nature.
Right. I don't really need to, just because, like, yeah, things happen and we can talk about them. Nothing really eventful happened enough in these first 3 episodes where I'm like, I need to go deep dive 100% into these episodes. I'm just like pulling from the episodes and talking about like what I liked and what I disliked, because
that's fair.
And
yeah.
that's where the show is at for me. Like, it's not enough for me to want to deep dive into it and go, bit by bit to try to pull it like together. But it's, not enough for me to just like not acknowledge it at all. Or, it's not like this is the cold open of our show. Oh, we saw Ironheart. It was really bad. We might not watch it, guys. Like, it's not anywhere near there.
Yeah.
But it's like, there's no other way of saying it. It is so middle down the road. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It can be a good thing or a bad thing. And again, it only has room to improve with the last few episodes that it has, which I don't. How many episodes did they order for the show? Is it 9 or 6?
It's 6.
It's 6. Okay, so we only have next week left. They have a very strong chance to improve the show and stick that landing better. But technically, we're already at the halfway point of the show.
Correct.
We have an idea on where they're going with it. And if they keep going the road they're going, they've got a pretty good show. It just had a rocky start. But please.
Well, and I think, again, for me, there's a lot of stuff that I really like. Natalie. We haven't really talked about Natalie all that much.
Yeah, I threw her in there at the beginning. Yeah. Let's talk about Natalie.
She's a really good presence. I don't know if you know. Do you know what Natalie is in the comics? So Natalie is present in the comics, but
I don't know anything about the comics.
Okay, so Natalie is present in the comics. She is Riri's best friend and things like that. I don't remember if the death is the same and things like that, but she is not the AI that Riri has. Do you want to know who the AI that Riri has in the comic books is?
Who?
It's Iron Man. Iron Man is the AI that Riri Williams uses. Now, you can obviously assume that a big factor as to why that's not the case in the show is because Robert Downey Jr. is ridiculously expensive and will not be booked for a 6-episode TV show for Disney. Especially since he's doing things like Doom and whatever.
Sure.
However, in the comics, he is a sassier version of Iron Man. And I think that they capture that really well in Natalie's performance, which gives a lot of heart to the show as well, obviously with the drive-by and the mental spiraling of Riri and things like that. I do love the whole scene where the mom finds out about Natalie and is very endeared and actually like really supportive of it. Because a lot of people would be very freaked out. And now, granted, she was in the beginning, but she was like, oh my God, like you represent her mannerisms, you're all this. But she also isn't. And I think it's very important to remember, and they do kind of hint at it, is she is not Natalie. She is Riri's memory of Natalie. The reason why she says that she has gaps is because this version of Natalie is not going to remember the times when she's not with Riri because Riri wasn't there to remember it. So she is only what Riri knows of Natalie. Maybe she'll have some memories of stories that Natalie told her and things of that nature.
Sure, right.
But it does call into question, and I love that this was one of those dialogues because, again, AI is a very big conversation right now when she's in the bunker with Ezekiel or Joe, and she asked the question of what happens if someone created an AI that was like from someone's brain and more humanoid, and he's like, it would depend on the ethics of the creator, and you can agree with that comment or not, but it is true on asking the questions of, is this ethical? Because that is not Natalie. It is not even Natalie's brain scan. It is Riri's understanding of Natalie.
Right. Yeah. Which I don't know. I have a feeling that they pulled a Chekhov's gun moment when the mom was like, could you bring back your stepdad. I'm like, okay, so at some point, the stepdad's totally coming back. Like they're gonna pull something like that.
Possible.
Which I there's a strong chance they will, and it might be just be for like an emotional moment or whatever. But there's a strong chance they would. I think that Natalie is probably the most intriguing part of this show because that's actually what I wanted them to dive more into. Was why is she a thing? Like Riri almost just kind of like accepted that she was a thing. Never really like tried beyond asking Joe that one question.
Essentially, yeah.
Right. Like, and that's something where I'm like, I really wish you actually would have asked more about that because that's actually really interesting. Why won't you do more with that? No, we're just gonna go hang out with the Hood and his merry band of misfits. No, okay. Also, a complaint I have about this show. I complained about this show that where they just wasted somebody, and this is the same thing I had about Nick Frost a few weeks ago with How to Train Your Dragon. The guy who plays I forget what his character's name is in the show, but the actor's name is Eric Andre. Do you know who Eric Andre is?
Yes, I am very. It's Rampage. Is the name of the character in the show, Eric Andre.
So you mean to tell me
he's in there for? I will tell you, he was probably on set for half a day. They probably just shot all of his scenes in like half a day.
you mean to tell me that you hired Eric Andre to play a bit role? Not only do you not let him be funny or do anything, but you completely waste him as an actor. Like you paid so much money to have him on set. I guarantee you he got paid more than any other person in the crew other than Anthony Ramos. Like, and you mean to tell me that you're just not going to do anything with him? Like, period?
I will say it is one of those unfortunate circumstances. When I saw him come on screen, I was like, oh my God, he's in this? I was watching the Real Rejects reaction, and they had the same exact reaction when they saw him come on screen. They're like, wait, he's in this? And I think one of the reasons why I don't hate his character, he does move to further the plot with his death and things like that. I think I don't have a problem with the role that the character plays. I do think it is unfortunate because it kind of does mean that unless they go multiversal, he can't play any other role in 616.
Well, that's not true.
He is locked to that role.
That's not true because Captain Marvel disproved that with Gemma Chan and Eternals. Gemma Chan played Cersei in Eternals, and she was a smaller Kree character in Captain Marvel.
I think the difference that you have with that is I don't even remember her role because she was probably in face paint and things like that.
Yeah,
Eric Andre is, you know what he looks like unless he plays an alien or something like that. Like, you know what he looks like. He is a very recognizable actor. It would be very, very difficult to be like, oh yeah, this isn't just Rampage that you saw.
Sure. Well,
granted, how many people are going to watch Ironheart, whatever, but still.
Well, and you can have a lot of really cool like character cameos from like Eric Andre. Similar to what they did with like remember what they did with Nathan Fillion?
That is exactly funny enough. The reason why he came to mind is because I had an edit on TikTok recently with all of Nathan Fillion's roles. I think he's played 5 different roles in the MCU or something like that, but all of them are either voices or aliens or ways that it wouldn't be like, oh, that's Nathan Fillion. Like,
right. The only time his face is ever shown is in Guardians 3, and he plays relatively an unknown guard, and he's actually in the movie longer than what I thought he would be. Nathan Fillion obviously is going to be playing Guy Gardner in Superman. Check out the Nerdy Nimrods podcast for that episode in the future. Just doing a little bit of future promotional stuff for us.
Almost exactly a month away, kind of, somewhere like that. They did a showing. Somewhere. Coy has seen Superman, and a bunch of other people have seen Superman in its entirety now. They did like a month early showing of it.
I wouldn't be surprised if Regal or AMC, Regal does like these not midnight, but they do like these Mystery Monday movie showings. Last week was Jurassic World. Last week was Jurassic World. I wouldn't be surprised if Superman gets the same thing. It gets the same treatment because they already have it a month early and people have already seen it. That's why I'm probably going to go to the Mystery Movie Monday just to see what it is. If it's not Superman and it's something I don't want to see, I'll just walk out. But
Fair. those aren't at least for AMC, my biggest problem with those mystery things is they're not included in the AMC pass. So if I want to go like gamble, I'd be spending money. So I'm not going to go to one of those, even though there is a very equivalent.
Sure.
But yeah.
Anyway, but back to back to the main point of conversation. Yeah, so Nathan Fillion, he's played multiple different roles within the MCU. He's only shown his face once. Eric Andre started off by showing his face, and he can pretty much do stuff in the MCU, but it's got to be like voice work now, or it's got to be something
it is going to be very difficult for him to return again in a different role.
Sure. Who voices? Because I remember him playing another role too. Who voices Howard the Duck in the MCU?
I will Google that.
Maybe I'm wrong, but I also remember that guy playing multiple roles within the MCU as well. But I don't remember.
Seth Green.
Seth Green. Oh, yeah, it is Seth Green. Seth Green, I think, voiced another character somewhere in Guardians 3, non-Howard the Duck. I remember that now. That's right.
Seth Green has been an Expo fan and Howard the Duck.
Okay, maybe, yeah.
That's all it says. In his wiki page on fandom, his characters are just like 5 Howard the Ducks, and then it just says Expo fan. But I think that Expo fan is from no. So he was in Iron Man 2 and then the 3 Guardians movies.
Yeah, 3? Was Howard the Duck in Guardians 3?
I think so. Yeah, I think he was in like an end credit. No, I think he was like seen or like yeah, he was. I'm almost positive he was like briefly or something like that.
No, I believe you. I just don't remember. Anyway, but using that as an example, Eric Andre, you could find something else for him to do if you really want. But like, what other thing could he really fit into now? Like, Rampage actually worked very well for him, and then they just kind of wasted Rampage, and we got nothing for him anymore.
He had actual on screen. I think he was on screen for 3 scenes.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what Marvel was thinking with that. That was a random casting choice just to completely waste.
It's kind of like having Josh from Drake and Josh in Last of Us for that very brief cameo just to get killed off.
Yeah, but I think there was a point by it because he had a whole monologue. He had a whole like I think that was for the joke. Like, yeah, he did get killed off, but that was for a bit joke.
I mean, yeah, that's true. But I guess you can make the same argument here with he's there for a joke to further the plot as well. So, like,
well, what joke? What joke is he there to tell? Like, at least with Drake and Josh, at least with Josh Peck, it was clear, like what exactly he was saying. But what joke is Eric Andre saying here? Oh, I'm incompetent and this doesn't want me anymore. I don't know. I don't know. There are so many things in this show, man, where it's just like, that's stupid. Don't do that. And they're doing it. Okay. But there's other things where I'm like, hey, that's pretty good. You should continue going with that. Hey, they're going to keep going with that. That's great. That's why it's so middle of the road. And that's why I really can't say anything more other than that until we get these next batch of episodes next week. It's fine. If you're a fan of Marvel, give it a watch once. Unless it gets better. It's fine. You can do what you want with it. I agree with you because I'm going to recap what you said for my final thoughts, but I'm not hating my time.
Mm-hmm.
I just haven't been grasped or hooked by anything that's like there yet. I'm almost there, but they haven't gotten me completely there yet, which is kind of sucky considering it is the halfway point.
If they pull off these next 3 episodes, like if they have equal to or better quality than the last episode, which I think is objectively the best episode, again, I think this could be a really, really good show as a full package. I still think it will have not as good episodes, though. I will say one more thing before we move on, and before this is kind of my final thoughts, but not really. It's just one last talking point. You had texted me before I had watched these episodes that you're like positive we're gonna get Mephisto in in the MCU through Ironheart.
No. What was my specific text to you? Because it's really funny.
I'd have to
No, you don't have to look at it. I remember exactly what it was.
Oh, okay. What was it?
Eric Voss can finally rejoice. He's getting exactly what he wanted.
Yes. Our other Lord and Savior of Easter eggs, Eric Voss. But I think that I assumed that we were. Now it's basically like I think it's confirmed. And the reason why I say it's like confirmed is we got Lady Death in Agatha all along. Lady Death is a huge cosmic level character to get introduced in a TV series. So you can be like, oh, they're not going to release, reveal Mephisto in Ironheart. Like, that's too big of a character. They did it with Death. I'd put Death and Mephisto pretty neck and neck for how big they are in the MCU and how powerful they are and things of that nature. So I originally would have been on the side of I'm not sure if they were going to do this. Now that Agatha all along confirmed Lady Death and had Lady Death in it, I think it is a guarantee that we are going to get Mephisto. I don't think he's going to play as big of a role as Death did in Agatha all along. I do think it is pretty much a guarantee that at least in the last episode, maybe we'll have a full episode with him or cameos or what have you.
We never really did. I know because the podcast came out after it. We never did talk about Agatha all along, like really all that bad, like all that well. I actually kind of liked Agatha all along. I thought it was fun.
I thought it was good.
And if the show stays on track with what it is now, it probably could be on the same length as Agatha all along.
I actually agree with that statement because I was not hooked by Agatha all along in the beginning. It's another one of those shows that I think got better every single episode. And I think it was also 6 episodes, if I'm not mistaken. So I think
9.
Ironheart. Oh, was it 9?
Agatha was 9.
Okay. I still think that if Ironheart continues on its upward trajectory, I think that they'll be pretty on par. And I think that's a pretty good bar to meet is Agatha all along. So yeah, I think that kind of wraps up my thoughts, to be honest with you, is that comparison is all they need to do is stick the landing and not just stick the landing, but like continue on this trajectory. I think the ending of this last episode was exceptional. I think having Riri break down so monstrously and getting to see that, while also having Hood breaking down and the loss of his cousin, Riri watching Hood actually like kill people and give her an insight, because her big thing in this is she doesn't want to hurt anyone. She doesn't want to kill people. And even with the incident with the security guard, she was freaking out about that. And now she's watched him kill someone. So yeah, I think that's interesting. I think there's a lot of open questions like, why is Hood really on this trek? Like he's kind of said, oh, it's because we want to get noticed. Sure. But I think his conversation in the greenhouse kind of opens up that there's more to that. There's something, if it was just about being noticed and about money, he would have just accepted the check. But to me, it seems like there's something more going on. Like there's a reason why he's targeting these specific people and is very gung-ho about it. So I think that, yeah, if they answer those questions and those answers are satisfying and done in a good, like interesting way, I think this could be a pretty good show. With some mediocre episodes. That's kind of where I'll leave my thoughts, and I know you already concluded yours. So unless there's anything else you want to say, we can kick us off into the next category. Now, I would like to ask. I know I started Ironheart. Can I start this one?
Yeah. No, you can start it. Let's quickly talk about the live action Disney Cars remake with Brad Pitt as Lightning McQueen. Go ahead, Brandon. No, that was the first thought I had going into it. Was like, is this just going to be Cars? And is Brad Pitt playing like live action Lightning McQueen? And does that make Javier Bardem Mater? Like, no, go ahead.
I want to start this off by saying I texted Carson after we got out of this movie and said, this is a movie that I will not give you an inkling. And he tried to push me for it when we talked on phone calls throughout the week after I saw this movie. Saw it on Thursday for any semblance of my opinion. So I don't know what Carson thinks that I think about this movie. I don't know if he has any idea on why I didn't want to tell him. And I did not want to know his thoughts. Carson, I'm about to tell you the reason why I did not want you to know my thoughts on this movie and why I did not want you to know my thoughts on this movie.
Yeah.
Because, Carson, I think this might be my movie of the year so far.
I don't disagree with you.
Fucking love this movie. Oh my God. I did not anticipate going into this movie and having such a good time with it. I have never sweat as much. Been at the dude. I was cheering. The guy next to me was going like this throughout the movie when they were like. This movie hooked me and the audience so well. It was just so not what I was expecting, and it was so fucking good, dude. It was, again, this movie, start to finish, had me hooked. It had great character moments. It had a really good heart to it that I was not expecting. The cinematics, I watched this in IMAX, and I know Carson also said that he wanted to pay extra and saw this in IMAX as well. I don't know if you realize this. I think we might have talked about this. This was actual F1 racing. Like, every single shot of cars racing was cars racing, whether it's Brad Pitt actually racing or whether it's shots from actual. They reinvented the technology of the cameras on F1 cars so that they could better film a higher quality video for this movie, and it shows. Cinematically, this movie is phenomenal. It is very well paced. It is a long movie. It is 2.5 hours. I wanted more. I wanted even more. And I think that is the best compliment you can give a movie is I wanted even more time with these characters. I wanted more racing. I wanted more intrigue. And that's not me saying we didn't get enough of it, because we got a lot of it in those 2.5 hours. But the biggest compliment as I can give is I just wanted to live in this movie. It was so good. And I'm just going to stop there because I know we're going to talk about this a lot, but that is why I did not want you to know my thoughts at all on this movie. And I did not want to know your thoughts because I did not want them to influence or change anything. Not that they would, but like genuinely, this might be my movie of the so far. This is my movie of the year. This was my most fun in the theaters. Like, and I know it's the same like director and thing. This was the most fun I've had in theaters and the most intrigued since like a Top Gun Maverick. It really felt like the Top Gun Maverick of cars. They accomplished that so well. So yeah, I'll let you give your thoughts, but like that's
I mean, it does help that it's the same guy who did Top Gun Maverick. So
give
him cars, he's gonna be just fine. But so my thoughts are still so fresh in my head, which is why I'm going to let you take more of the lead when it comes to like actually.
Well, yeah, because you saw this, you got back from the theater 1 o'clock in the morning this morning.
I can already tell you though that this film is it's at least at number 2. It could be number 1. I need more time to think about that because right now my number 1 is Sinners, and I still think the story itself of Sinners is really good. F1 story is really good, and the cinematography is so good. Like, okay, let's just start with this. Here are my thoughts. This movie, this isn't a dig. This is a compliment. It is really hard for a movie to do something original. This film does do things that are original, but it really, when you pay attention to it, follows the standard formula of a standard racing movie. It just hits every beat so perfectly that it doesn't matter. And that is the best compliment I can give it. It does it so perfectly that you do not care. You don't care once about how everything, how it is like just similar to like other, like if you watch, you watch the Gran Turismo movie, which was garbage. I hated that movie. It does kind of follow a very similar track to that Gran Turismo movie. It's not all the same. There is differences. There is things that they change. It's similar, but this does it better here because it adds great characters. It adds tension. We already mentioned the cinematography, which come on, man, golly, just give me a whole movie of just following a car going in laps around over and over again, and I will be entertained. Like that was so beautiful. It follows a really unique story told like it is the underdog story, but it's told in a very specific way. And we talked about Ironheart. We have two underdogs.
Yeah.
One of the things that I really love that this movie did, and we kind of talked about it a little bit with Riri when it came to Ironheart about making mistakes. Javier Bardem, when he comes in to this, when Ruben comes into this story, he comes looking for Sonny, and it's this whole thing of I need you. You are great at what you do. You are the best at what you do. I want you specifically because you're going to be able to do this right. Everybody looks at this man. Even when he drives, first off, the first 5 minutes of the movie had me hooked immediately. I was like, golly, dude, come on, man. That's so cool.
Him winning the Daytona 500 and then just walking away. Like, he wakes up from a nap, wins the Daytona 500, and then just walks away. I'm like, I want more of this guy. I want to find out what his deal is.
Wow, the balls of steel on this guy just walk away. But like when Javier Bardem's character enters, like it's like we saw how good of a racer Brad Pitt is, but we didn't exactly see like how he can make mistakes. The movie heavily shows that even though he is built up to be this perfect best racer ever, he can still make mistakes. And that is the most beautiful part of this movie to me, is that they are willing to show like, hey, nothing is ever perfect. Nothing can ever go exactly right. Even if you are the best at what you do, things go wrong. It's like the testing of the Cybertruck from, I don't know when it was, but when Elon threw the metal ball at the thing and it just shatters, like, oh, okay. So that really wasn't as durable as you thought it was, Elon. Go back to shop and try again. I really appreciated how that was shown here. Javier Bardem, I think, gives one of the best performances I've ever seen him give. He does an incredible job here. Who's the actor's name who plays Josh? I don't know his name.
JP, it's Damson Idris. I don't even need to look that one up.
I don't. Damson Idris. Okay. Phenomenal.
Yeah, you're talking about Joshua Pierce, right?
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely incredible. One of the standout performance of this film. In a film surrounded by Javier Bardem and Brad Pitt.
I don't want to cut you off, but I just got to say, because I there's a lot that I didn't get to say in my opening, and since we're talking about actors, this is my favorite role I've seen Brad Pitt in. And here's the thing. I am not the biggest Brad Pitt fan. I don't go out to movies to just watch Brad Pitt. I don't think he's a bad actor by any means. No. I think that the performance that Brad Pitt gives in F1 is stellar. Like you said, the entire cast brings their A game with this movie.
I told my dad this morning when I got up for a little bit and walked around for a second, because I told him, I was like, look, if there was like one complaint or one weakness in this movie, which I don't really even think there is per se, and this is like kind of unavoidable because you hired the actor who is notorious for this, it's Brad Pitt with his Brad Pitt-isms. But Brad Pitt does that for every role he's in. Like, Brad Pitt's one of those actors, like, he plays different roles, but he plays them the same way to a certain degree. Like, if you watch Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, it's very similar to the character he played in Inglourious Basterds. If you watch a few episodes of Friends, it's very similar to the character he played in Ocean's 11. You get what I'm getting at. His roles may be different, and they may have a different flair to him, but Brad Pitt always adds his flair and his Brad Pitt-isms into it. And I don't know whether that's a complaint or a compliment, because here it really works, but I'm like,
yeah.
I will say this, and I look, I love the movie to death. Brad Pitt's role as Cliff Booth in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is always going to take the cake. I'm sorry. That is 100% his best role. He's really, really good here. And maybe it'll grow on me even more. But no, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is definitely his best role. It's the one he won numerous awards for, too, to be fair.
I think that there is a good chance that F1 movie will win some awards. Now, I think Sinners is going to unfortunately take the... I shouldn't say unfortunately. I do think Sinners is going to deservedly take the cake on a lot of awards this year. I think that F1 is up... Again, it is... I would rather watch this movie again than Sinners. Not that Sinners is a bad movie. I loved Sinners. Sure. But I think it is... Okay, I'm gonna say this, because I was so focused on a lot of different things that I didn't get to say this in the beginning of my spiel.
Go for
this
it.
movie is not for everyone. Just like Sinners is not for everyone, this movie is not for anyone. In fact, if you walk out of this movie and did not enjoy this movie or did not like have a fun time with it, I do not blame you. I think that is totally reasonable. A lot of runtime of this movie is watching people race. If that does not interest you, you will not enjoy this movie. Think that is totally fair. I will say, when I was walking out of the theater, I heard multiple people going, "That was great. Oh, I love this movie. Oh, they gave great performance." They're like, people in my theater, which was a packed theater, mind you, for an IMAX Thursday showing, loved this movie. But again, if you do not enjoy this movie, I think that is totally valid. And now I'm also going to say my parents sometimes watch this podcast, not always, but sometimes. Hi, mom and dad, if you're here. I texted my dad after I got out of this movie, and I was like, "Dad, you should go see this movie in theaters." My dad and mom, to a certain extent, because I texted them together. My dad's a big Top Gun fan. He loves Top Gun 1 and he loves Top Gun Maverick. And what I told him is, the reason I'm telling you to go see this movie is if you enjoy Top Gun, this is the Top Gun of race cars. Now, my dad's not necessarily the biggest racing fan, but I think my dad's also not a pilot and he still enjoys Top Gun. So I texted my dad and I was like, I really think that this is a movie that you should see in theaters, that I think you would enjoy. I texted a few other friends as well. When I get out of a movie, I don't always like text a bunch of people telling them to go see this movie or my thoughts or anything. I also texted my friend who's a big F1 fan, who conveniently got out of the theater in Florida at the same time that I was getting out up here. And he was like, "Dude, I love that movie. That was a great movie," and things like that. And I was also able to bounce some questions off of him about, like, how realistic is it to F1 racing? How is this? Like, things like that, which we'll get into. But I also texted another one of my friends, that friend that I mentioned earlier, who wasn't as high on this movie. And I told him, I was like, "Dude, I'm not saying that you're going to love this movie. I don't know if this movie is for you specifically, but I'm just going to tell you, I just saw F1 and it is my movie of the year so far." And he's like, "Oh, now I got to go see the movie." And I was like, "Look, again, if you walk out of that movie and don't enjoy it, I think that is totally valid. I don't think that is something that I will say, 'Oh, you're wrong.' But I'm just saying that for me, for my personal preferences, this movie was exceptional."
It's really funny because we keep saying this is the movie of the year. And I don't know what it is about this year so far. Maybe we'll get more films in the latter half of the year. Usually that seems to what it is. That's what happened last year.
Well, we've got a packed summer. We've got a movie a week for the next month and a half, 2 months. We've got Jurassic World, we've got Superman, we've got Fantastic Four, we've got some movies.
Well, and I just mean that, like, the bar itself for being the best film of the year, it really wasn't that high. Sinners was the only thing that's up there where I'm like, okay, you really could have overtaken that pretty easily. Thunderbolts was probably that's a problem when Thunderbolts is higher up on the list, especially because Thunderbolts wasn't bad. I really enjoyed Thunderbolts, but like F1 versus Thunderbolts, come on, man, there's no comparison there.
Yeah.
And Thunderbolts is high up there because everything else this year that came out, for the most part, was not that fantastic. It's good.
We don't watch every movie that comes out. And we've talked about this before because of the podcast and because of the way that we've changed the podcast, because the original idea of the podcast is not what it is now. I think we both enjoy this a lot more.
Yes.
But doing these movie reviews has kind of forced both of us to watch more movies. At least me. Like, I never would have gone out and seen Elio in theaters, or admittedly, maybe even Sinners in theaters, or Karate Kid in theaters. Not granted, Karate
Phoenician Scheme. You never would have watched Phoenician Scheme.
I never would have seen Phoenician Scheme. Now, I think it's very unfortunate, and honestly, I regret that I haven't filmed a 3-minute short of this. Maybe I'll do that after. Like, Carson, you need to see Phoenician Scheme. I never would have seen Phoenician Scheme if it wasn't for this podcast. Even if we didn't review it, because I have the AMC Pass now because of this podcast, I have a list on my phone, actually, and I know we're going off and I really want to talk about F1. I have a running list on my phone of movies that I see trailers for in theaters that I never would have been like, "Oh, I'm all that interested in." But now that I have the pass and it basically cost me the metro ride over there to see the movies, I'm writing down movies and being like, "I want to see this. I want to see this. I want to see this." And even with seeing more movies, I think the point that I'm trying to make is, even with seeing more movies than I typically would in a year, F1 still takes the cake. And again, F1's one of those movies that I might have not even seen in theaters if it wasn't for this podcast. And I'm so glad even if no one's watching this podcast, which really there isn't other than like our friends and family, I am very glad that we're doing this podcast because I might never have watched F1. And us doing this podcast gives me a reason to watch more. Same with like anime. I'm watching way more anime because of our shorts that we're doing. And I am loving that.
It allowed you to have the opportunity to branch out and experiment with stuff that you genuinely probably wouldn't have.
Yeah, exactly.
Again, I haven't picked up One Piece in probably in a little bit now, but like even so, I never would have watched One Piece without the podcast. I never would have gotten into that. Yeah. I never would have even tried to watch it. It just wouldn't have been my thing. To a certain degree, it's still not my thing, but at least I tried it, and at least I enjoyed a good portion of it.
Hey, I think we talked about this before, but I have a friend who I finally convinced to watch One Piece who lives up here with not with me. He's not my roommate or anything. We almost were, but anyways, he just started watching One Piece not that long ago. Like I think like a month ago at this point. He's going at basically the same speed I was. He's almost done. He's like over halfway done by now. He's hooked. He is hook, line, and sinker. And that's why I want you to get back to it so bad, because I think you would love it as much as he is right now. You just gotta go. Anyways, we're going off on a tangent. F1. So the general idea of F1, walking into it, again, my perception was we're gonna watch racing. That is not what this movie is. Now let's get into what this movie actually is. This movie is about two rookies. It's technically one of them is not a rookie. He's been racing for a while, but he is newer to F1. They have a really okay. Sorry, I know where you said we were going to get into what this movie actually is. I have one more thing that I have to say before we get more deeper. It is related. This movie is hilarious.
Oh, it's funny.
This movie was so, when I walked into this movie, I was not expecting it to be a funny movie. Now, granted, it's not a comedy by any means. Dude, the whole theater was laughing their butts off multiple times. There were some jokes in there, and the reason why I bring this up now is because one of those jokes that got us laughing, like me in the theater, was when they're having the first interaction between JP and Sunny. JP was like, oh, when's the last time you won an F1 race? And Sunny's comeback is, oh, I've like same as you. And I was like, oh my, that just got me dying. Right then and there, it told you everything you needed to know about how these characters are going to interact with each other. And they stayed so hilariously consistent with it.
Yeah.
To where when you have things like the poker scene later on in the movie, I loved those moments when we would slow down and take away from the racing and get to watch the actual bonding moments of this movie. Because, I mean, you have everything. This movie has everything. This movie has action with the racing. This movie has a romance in it. This movie has comedy in it. This movie has heart to it. It has found family in it. The whole pit crew coming together and Sunny doing, and then JP doing the same thing when he realizes what he's done wrong and Sunny realizing what he's done. It is so good.
Yeah.
But anyways.
No, you even saying that now, like, it just goes back to what I was saying. Like, the things you're saying are all things that we've seen before in either other previous racing movies or sports movies. Here, it's just done to an expert level, and it's done with such perfection that you forget that it's been done before. That's not a detriment. That's a positive thing. But yeah, continue. Sorry.
No, yeah, I was just gonna say, like, you go into this movie, at least I did, thinking, oh, you're gonna get a racing movie, and again, to an extent, you do, but you start out with a washed up racer. And it is, I will say, it is really funny how everyone's like, oh my God, Sonny's a washed up racer. He's nothing. He means nothing. In the beginning of the movie, he won the Daytona 500. Now, granted, it was a team effort because in the Daytona 500 with the 24-hour races, you have multiple racers because no one can race for 24 hours straight. He contributed to winning the Daytona 500 for, who was it again? BMW or something like that. I can't remember which car it was that he won it for.
I don't remember.
I also love, and this is another thing to the subtlety of this movie, also carrying the storytelling, is in that beginning when he leaves the Daytona 500, you have the whole scene where he takes his hat off and he throws it into the pile of hats, and it has all the different like racer, like all the different car brands that he's raced for. Right then and there, you can put together like, oh, this man cannot stay in one place. And even to an extent, at the end of this movie, you think, and again, this is another thing that's phenomenal with the storytelling. You think, oh, he's changed. He's gonna go and become a member of this team. He's gonna race again or become the director or whatever. No, he continues on his journey. In the beginning, we see him looking at an ad before he's roped into F1 for, what was it, Baja Blast? Like, not that's a drink at Taco Bell.
Baja Blast.
It was like Baja Racing or something like that.
Yeah.
Which is like in the sand, very rugged, like not as clean racing.
Sure.
Which he looks at the beginning, and you think, and he's like, oh, I'm gonna go do this next, and then he gets roped into F1. He goes and does that. At the end of the movie, instead of continuing with F1, he does the same exact thing he's always does, which is move on to the next thing. Which I think, for me, you can be like, oh, well, then why, like, there's no character growth, like, whatever. No, I think that is a good show of character growth while sticking with character consistency. Because sometimes you can mess that up where you confuse character growth and think that it is a requirement for a character to change everything about them and things like that. But you have in it an aspect of character consistency where you do see his personality shift and his willingness to work with the team shift and his love for the sport shift. But he's also still the same person deep down. He's not changing everything that he is, which I loved.
Yeah. No, there's something that's so unique about this plot, and yet it's a stereotypical plot. This is where it's like one of the changes is just so like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. Is he doesn't stay, like he's looking for these other things, but it stays true to who he is as a person. Like, yeah, people change and whatnot, but oftentimes people don't always change. Like they want to keep just roaming around and keep going. So he pops in, he does his job, which is, in this film, he just pops in, does what he's hired to do, and he leaves again. It's interesting because I want to know if they did that purely for sequels. Like, you know what I mean?
I don't think so. I hope
they don't, because it's a really well done ending. That was one of my thoughts where I was like, are they doing this just so they can spawn a bunch of sequels? Like, are they sending them off to do this?
No. I don't think so. And the reason why I say that is, did you stay for a portion of the credits? Because the first like half of the credits is him racing on the beach in that Baja car or whatever, which makes me think that that's not setting up for a sequel. That is just them saying, oh, he's gone off and done his thing. And he is literally in this thing riding off into the sunset. Sure. And I think that is both beautifully shot, but also metaphorical for, no, we don't need more of this. We're not going to do a spinoff, because he's literally at the end of the movie riding off into the sunset with this new era of racing.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, that's fair. Yeah, I didn't stick around for the credits. It was literally early. It was late at night. I wanted to go home.
Early in the morning. It's like, what, 1:30 in the morning? Yeah.
I think. I don't even remember. I just wanted to go home. I couldn't stay. I will say that there was one moment that got an audible laugh out of me, and it wasn't purposeful, but it was the moment when Ruben points to the magazine of him and Sonny on the front of the magazine. It's like a de-aged Javier Bardem and de-aged Brad Pitt. I actively sat there and went, oh no, oh God, that's horrible. Don't show that. They're so old. Don't show me a de-aged photo of them, because it didn't look bad. It was just one of those moments where I'm like, oh no.
It was kind of comical, honestly, like looking at them trying to de-age them. You have Brad Pitt with like blonde hair or whatever, and you're like, okay, you did what you could there without trying to digitally de-age them too much. Like, I honestly didn't see any really digital de-aging. It really just felt like they stuck him in a wig and some makeup.
No, it's not even played for laughs. Like, it's not meant to be a joke. It's actually meant to be a really heartfelt moment. It's the thing that basically gets him to like join and help, because originally he says no to Ruben, and it's just a moment where I sat there and go, that's really special. That doesn't look okay. Why are we doing that? No, it's just funny. I wanted to point that out because I that got an audible laugh at me. Oh my god, I can't believe that they did that. It looks so weird.
Yeah, but like shifting over to talk about JP, who's essentially the co-lead to this movie. Now, another thing before I get into that with that is this is a lot more of an ensemble movie than I was expecting. Now, granted, Brad Pitt and Damson Idris are definitely the leads of this movie.
Sure.
But you get a lot of time with other characters that play very significant roles with very significant screen time.
Sure.
And I need to pull it up really quickly on what else Damson Idris has done, because I know I've seen him in other movies.
I'm sure. I
don't
know.
I have.
Well, talking about
Twilight
ensemble.
Zone. It actually doesn't look like it. It doesn't look like he's done that much, which is honestly a shame. I really hope that this movie opens up a lot of opportunities with him starring with Brad Pitt. Because he does a phenomenal job in this movie. He plays an arrogant kid very, very well, but also has a lot of character growth. I think like the moment with him opening up and admitting to his mom that he was in the wrong. Like, you have those moments. You have the moments where he leaves the party early because he thinks back to like, oh, Sonny left because they have the race in the morning, but he's going out and kind of forcing himself to be someone he doesn't want to be, because I think his manager does genuinely care about him, but his manager also is very pushy in the sense of sponsorships, advertisements, showing face. And Sonny is very much the old school. He doesn't like doing press. He doesn't like doing these things. And I think, like, for instance, another really cool moment with like, it shows his arrogantness to a degree where, again, he doesn't change all that much, because I think, and I actually had a conversation with some of my coworkers not that long ago. To be the best at any sport, you have to be arrogant. To be the best at anything, to be the top echelon, you have to be arrogant, because you have to believe that you can be the best. And by nature of believing that you can be the best, you have to be arrogant. And I think that they portray that in this movie phenomenally, because JP stays arrogant throughout the movie, just like Sonny stays who he is throughout the movie, but he still learns and grows. And you have the movie where like he has the whole moment in his first press with Sonny where he basically calls him an old man who's washed up, and then his mom forces him to apologize, and he doesn't really want to, and things like that. And later on, like towards the end of the movie, you have them still fighting and still being at each other's throats. And there was never this big makeup moment. There was never a big, oh, let's make up, let's be buddy, let's be friends. You never get that in the movie. And I love that. I love that we never get a movie where they're holding hands, skipping off into the sunset, happy-go-lucky. You do have the moment where JP gives up the win to Sonny, but you still played off as a joke of, oh, I'm going to win plenty of these. You're an old man who's not going to get many. And I think that is part of his mindset. Like, granted, it is like, he does still feel genuine behind it. I love that part of the movie. That is, these characters are still themselves while having the necessary growth. They have growth where it matters, because in the beginning, you have JP yelling at the pit crew and kind of belittling them. And then where it matters, he then finds the importance of that found family through Sonny's example, where I know I'm going on a lot about this movie, and I'll kick it back to you. But I think this is my movie. I love this movie because you have the moments where JP then goes and does the running with the crew when Sonny's not there anymore, and things like, I love that.
Sure, there is a clear-cut arc for almost every single one of the characters in this film, within reason. Obviously, if there's no arc to really learn, there's no arc to learn. But something that this film does, and this is something that The Sopranos does really well, and it's not fully what The Sopranos does, but something that The Sopranos really does, and the whole point of the show is you're watching a man refuse to change through all the trial, through all the hardships and all the things that is thrown at Tony Soprano, he never once changes, even though he actively says like, "Oh, I want to try, I want to be a good man." No, he's still a murderer. He's still a thief. He's still a mobster. He's a cheater. He sleeps around with women. This, that. Even though he promises his wife, "I'll never sleep with women." This, that. It's watching a man refuse to change. It's like the definition of insanity. Watching what's the definition? It's
definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different
result.
Thank
you. That's what I'm getting at. And that's like what The Sopranos is you watch the show because it's insane. You're going insane watching this happen because it's watching this man refuse to change, but he never does. And you're expecting him to, but he never does. Here, it's kind of similar, but there are clear-cut arcs. Like, nobody changes who they are. They're the same person. It's really a testament to how people actually are. At your core, people are never going to change. They will change maybe some interest by adding some things, maybe losing some things. They might change, how they might interact with certain things, but most of the time people stay who they are at the core. You and I really have never changed since high school. We've matured, but still we're the same fucking hard asses that we've, always been. And we'll make the occasional joke because we're not afraid to, or we'll be the asshole of the group, whatever. You get what I mean. Point being, it's a really good testament to how people actually change. And this movie does that very well. They show, like you said, the growth of each character without the character actually having to change who they are. That is a really hard thing to do, because most of the time in movies, it is about, oh, this character is going to completely change. Honest to God, let's use this example. Snow frickin' White. Horrible movie. But the whole idea is that Snow White needs to learn who she is and needs to change. She can't be so afraid. She needs to be brave and whatnot. It's done so horribly. Here, it's done to an expert level because you care about these characters. You care about who they are. You also don't. The movie doesn't give you a reason to care or want these people to change. It just gives you the reason of we want them to do this instead. Because it's an unrealistic thing to expect people to change. It's a more realistic thing to see growth within people, but it's an unrealistic thing to expect them to change. Again, I'm not going to ramble on that too long because I've already said my piece with that. But that's just something that the film, I think, does very, very well, and a lot of films don't really do ever. You know what? This is a great example. Sinners. You expect Smoke to change at the very end because he's going to die. He, is literally on death's door. He can see his wife and he can see his child, his child that had died. And she's like, "Hey, look, if you can put the cigarette, if you can put the gun down, if you put the cigarette down, you can hold him." And he does put the gun down. He puts the cigarette down after he shoots the Klan member. And you're like, "Oh my God, okay." So it's a simple statement of he didn't change in the end. He still killed people. He was still a villain. He just, he eventually, moved on. He did, it's little growth. He killed his wife after she got bit. And here it's kind of the same thing. And I don't know, that's just what I appreciate about this movie. That's what I really like.
Well, and you put it so well that the thing that this movie does phenomenally is it represents the difference between change and growth, because those two words are very often tied together, that change equals growth and growth equals change. I don't think that those two words mean the same thing. You can change without actually ever growing as a person. It is that happens a lot. And you can grow without ever really changing. And I think that's what we get in this movie, is these characters growing, but never really changing at all, but to a good, it's good. Because again, the things that don't change about JP is that JP continues being arrogant. He continues believing that he is going to be the best. He continues believing that he needs to be better, which is necessary to be the best. However, he grows in the sense of maturity and accepting that he isn't always perfect. He can have faults sometimes. Maybe he shouldn't go out and party every night. That is growth, but not necessarily change to his character.
Sure. It's if we're using another example, let's use two classic Disney movies. We have Beauty and the Beast, which the whole character arc of the Beast is literally to change how he, how he
appears,
acts.
Yeah.
Right. That's the whole point. He changes within to learn how to love. Lion King, on the other hand, is not technically about change. It's about Simba growing into becoming the person that he's supposed to be. Or the animal that he's supposed to be. Sorry, not the person. Simba's not a person.
Really?
I think those are two very, very good examples, and that everybody can really understand. And it actually shows the very, very clear difference between the two. Again, not to harken on that for much longer. I just think that's like a really, really
I think those two
movie.
movies are actually a really good example of the difference between growth and change, because the Beast changes his physical appearance to signify that he is changing as a person.
Yes.
Simba grows up from a child at the beginning of the movie to a full-grown adult lion at the end of the movie, signifying the difference between changing who you are and growing. I think those two movies are a great example to signify the difference. To move on to a different portion of this movie, I don't know if you have an idea in mind where you want to go. I'll let you take the reins on that. I was going to talk about something, but
no, go ahead. Please take the lead on this. You really enjoy this, so
dude, I love this movie. I love this movie. It was the racing. I know we kind of I talked about it a little bit in my beginning, but dude, this is so. I'm so glad that this is the same person that did Top Gun, because this movie needed that treatment. It needed that level of cinematography. It needed that level of direction. Apparently, I saw this. The director of the movie, before Brad Pitt was even brought on the movie, brought on essentially an F1 expert who knows everything there is to know about sound design. Because the sound design of this movie, spectacular. The cinematography and the shot composition of this movie, spectacular. You need someone who's able to understand F1 at its core to be able to do something like that.
Yes.
Because this movie is a lot of actual F1 driving. In fact, all of it is. The most digital enhancement that this movie has is there will be some times where they'll use footage from an actual F1 race that these two cars, because Apex isn't a real team, weren't actually participating in. But they're still real cars that they digitally touch up to look like the Apex cars. That is the extent as to which, but behind that digital makeup, which I didn't even notice. I don't know if you did. I did not know that that was what they did until I was watching a video after the fact. So that digital replacement, they need to use that technology more, because I didn't tell the difference. I didn't even know.
I didn't know.
I thought, and I was correct, that it was actual F1. And another thing that shows how much they care about F1, I don't know if you knew this, but every time you see an F1 team, F1 racer, F1 whatever, that is the actual team and the actual racer. If it's not JP and Sonny, every single one of the racers that you see throughout the movie is the actual F1 racer for that team. The reason I know that is, one, I asked my friend who's a big F1 fan, but also I recognize the guy who was racing for Red Bull, which, mind you, also is accurate. The Red Bull is dominating in F1. Red Bull was dominating in the movie. That was one of their biggest competitions. That is the racer for Red Bull. That is the actual racer for the Red Bull team. Same goes for all of the teams that you see in this movie. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that they filmed this movie at F1 races. Not every single one of them is shot for shot from an actual race, but when it's not taken from an actual race, it is them racing in a pseudo match, either whether it be qualifiers or something else, with those racers on the racetrack, either whether that be Brad Pitt or Idris. They do that.
Well, and again, this is why
it's such a benefit.
This is also because this story is not based on the true story. It's not real. None of, obviously the Red Bull guy is real. He's a real, like you just said, he's a real racer. He's the real racer for F1 right now. I'm going to point this out really quickly. again, I knew going into this movie that it was going to look very beautiful. I knew that they were going to have done their homework and the history would have been all accurate, purely because it's the same guy who did Top Gun, and the history in that movie was incredible. They did a phenomenal job bringing that world to life because it was pulled from history, and they did their homework and the stuff they did right. This is not a true story. Gran Turismo was based on a true story, or it may have been loosely based on a true story. But I know that like they even market it as based on a true story, so it's at least somewhere in the middle there. And Gran Turismo looked awful. The history was all over the place. The just actual like care they put into the movie was like really bad. It just it goes to show that you don't always have like I don't know. Just showing more different.
The reason why is because every element from this movie is real things that have happened in F1. I think the only one that isn't is Sonny's story. I don't know if that's like pulled from any semblance of reality, but
it probably is, but
crashing, getting injured and coming back, the getting burns and having to take a break, all of that is stuff that happens in racing in F1. I think we haven't really talked about this all that much, but I mentioned in my beginning that there were multiple twists in this movie that I did not see coming. One of those was JP getting injured and having to sit out, what was it, 3 to 5 races or something like that, burning his hands because of his own arrogance. That was something that I was not expecting. I was not expecting that at all. Another one being when Sonny is driving angry and crashes his own car and perpetuates his own injuries. Those twists in the movie, you can say, oh, well, it's generic. No, it's not. It is doing it twice and doing it twice to a degree that makes it make sense, because technically it's the same twist twice. One of the writers gets injured. Someone has to pick up the slack, whatever. Now, granted, Sonny doesn't sit out. I think he maybe sits out like one race because he gets fired, or whatever. But like those things were very interesting twists on the way that they were telling the story and the way that they forwarded it that I was not anticipating. I mean, when JP first crashed, I was like, did they just kill JP? Is that going to be the twist that JP is going to actually die? I'm glad that they didn't, granted, but like,
I totally thought
I love that I asked that question. I love that I asked the question both times that they crashed is, oh, is Sonny dead, or oh, is JP dead?
Again, like those twists themselves, like on their own, they've been done before. Those are the generic racing twists. But it's like I said, when it's done so right and so perfectly, you forget. And when the entire movie is so perfectly done, you forget that those are the generic twists. And that's why this movie's elevated. And that's why you ask the question of, is JP going to die here? Is he generally going to die? Something that I thought, even before the movie had started, I was dead certain that Brad Pitt's character was going to die in a crash. That's it. No, I'm just saying, like, that's something that I
didn't think that going in, but when he crashed, I was like, oh my God, did they just kill Brad Pitt's character?
Did they just kill Brad Pitt? At the end of the movie, you just see in loving memory of Brad Pitt. His sacrifice was worth it to get this movie out there.
But no, I agree that I love that I love that I asked the question and was uncertain where they were going. And I'm glad that they had the thing of like JP sitting out and things like that, and that hurting his I also love that JP sitting out has a very clear effect on his relationship with the team, because if you sit out 3 races, your team's going to bond together while you're gone for weeks, and you're not going to be there for it. Now, granted, he didn't have the best relationship with his team to begin with, but also I love that he has the thing where this movie has a lot of subtlety to it that I think I hope it doesn't go underappreciated, because you have the things like with how JP is doing the very standard analytical F1 racing. He's hooked up to all the machines running on the treadmill. He's using the reflex training machine, which looks like a rhythm game, things like that. He is going the very standard, very analytical, very cookie cutter approach to racing. I love how Brad Pitt, I love how Sonny has the thing where it's never clearly stated that I can remember, but essentially has that whole thing of you like following the standard path will only get you the standard outcome. There's a reason that you can't be the best if you do what everyone else is doing. He does say that with his racing metrics, where they're going the very creative approaches with the bending of the rules, which my friend did say that is a little bit of a stretch. That is where they go a little bit out of the bounds of realistic with F1. But I still think they did it interesting.
You have to add stakes, and you have to add something to the film that they give it. Like that's just one of those things where it's like, even in like it's just one of those things you have to add an element that gets you hooked. Like it's like what's the example I'm trying to think of? Movie, television show, I don't know. I'll think of it later, I'm sure, and I'll shout it at you. But like you, in order to add like a specific flair and element, you have to it's like if anybody's telling the story of Jesus Christ in any film, stage.
F1 and Jesus Christ, very similar movies.
Well, no. I'm using the example of oftentimes in the Bible. I'm not saying the story is bad. I'm not saying this. Look, I'm a Christian. I love that story just as much as the next guy. But when you see films or television versions of it, it's not always 100% accurate. Actually, this goes for most biopics, but I'm specifically using the Jesus one because The Chosen. I know you've never seen The Chosen, but you know what The Chosen is. It's a television show about the story of Jesus, finding his disciples, crucifixion, all of it. In the show, Peter has a wife. Simon Peter has a wife. That's never said in the Bible. If anything, it actually probably isn't in the Bible. At least I don't recall it being in the Bible. Mm-hmm. They added it, so it adds an element to that character, and it elevates the character, and it adds a certain flair to it. There's a whole added character for I think it's Matthew. It's been a while since I've seen the show. Spoilers for if you ever want to watch The Chosen. She dies in the 3rd episode of the 4th season. And everybody, I remember in the theater when I was watching this, was like, oh my God, they killed her off, because I think she's been in the show for a while, and she was a very, very fun presence, a fun character, just straight up dead, gets stabbed. And it's like those moments elevate the show, because then it adds, like, you have to have moments like that in order to make a product different or good or unique, or it adds something to it. And in F1, it's that moment where it's like, okay, that may not be accurate. Everybody probably follows the standard formula. You might have a little bit of difference. Brad Pitt's character is like, no, if you're doing what everybody else does, you're never going to be the best. You're never gonna go high, soar high above. You're never going to reach the top ranks. And so I'm not mad at moments like that. I can understand why maybe if you're a big fan of Formula One racing, or if you're a big fan of NASCAR racing, you might get upset about something like that. But it makes sense because it's a movie at the end of the day. It's not based on a true story. And you have to have something that adds to the film.
You have to have the moviness of the movie, essentially. Yes. Like there's a reason that movies that are just straight retellings of someone's life, like I would say, like another one being like Wolf of Wall Street. Like if you just told whatever his name is, like, life story, and didn't have the bolsterousness of Wolf of Wall Street the movie, it would probably be boring most of the time. You have to add elements to engage you.
But no, that's actually a good example. Jordan Belfort's life is very similar to what like was depicted in the movie, and there's apparently some stuff he's actually gone on record. Jordan Belfort said, like, there's stuff that, like, I said
was too much for the movie.
Yeah, they didn't even put it in the movie.
Yeah,
but there's a lot of things that are added for flair,
dramatic effect. Yeah,
the dramatic effect.
I think one of them was the storm in the movie that, like, sinks the ship. I think that was one that, like, wasn't there at all. Like, that didn't happen.
They tried to sail through a storm and the yacht got sunk, but like that, oh my God, there's no way that's what happened. Maybe he did, or maybe he didn't. I don't fully know.
Yeah. But anyways, what I was getting at with the subtlety is you have things like with Brad Pitt using the balls for reflexes, which is a very valid way of doing reflexes. When JP gets out of the hospital and he's beating himself up over his recovery, you see him kind of crashing out and unable to do the standard machine. So he's like, okay, let me give this approach. I see Sonny do this all the time. Let me do this. It's never mentioned, it's never called out, but it is very clearly a moment of like, okay, let me start taking his advice a little bit. And that moment isn't used to then be like, oh, he worships Sonny and does everything he says. No, it's just him understanding that there is things that he doesn't understand that he can take to improve upon himself and to grow as opposed to changing. And other moments of like, not subtlety, but like you have the thing with Sonny putting the card in his pocket. I love that they didn't tell us what the card was at the end of the movie. He sees the card, he has a reaction. They don't show it to us. He never looks at the card. He looks at the card at the end of the movie, but we still don't know. I love that. I don't need that answer. That answer is not crucial to the movie, so you don't need to tell me. And I love that this movie is comfortable not telling me. Because other movies would have showed you, they would have made a big deal about it, they would have had a reveal. No, this movie does not need to do that. It is not crucial to the plot to tell you what the card is. It is crucial to the plot to have him look at the card and his reaction. But us knowing what that card is does not matter whatsoever, so we don't get it, and we don't need to.
There's a really special bit at the end of The Office. Did you ever watch The Office?
No. I've seen episodes, but I've never watched it all the way.
There's a really special ending for the characters of Jim and Pam at the end of The Office that like harkens back to season 2. In season 2, before Jim and Pam get together, Jim gives Pam a Christmas gift. It's got a pot and it's got a whole note. I'm pretty sure the whole note, they never specifically say what's in the note, but like I'm pretty sure it's like confessing his love, whatever, this or that. It's got like everything that he probably would want to say to her or whatnot. Anyway, he never gives her that letter in the second season. Like he actually removes it. You see him remove it. He puts it in his pocket. Never comes back up again. It comes back up again in the second to last episode of the show. And he gives her the note. And even still in that moment, you don't know what it says. And you stick with it.
Because that's not the important part.
What's important is that it made that character happy. Or it gave that character something that, you know, you didn't exactly like they didn't have before, this or that. It's moments like that that I really appreciate in film. And The Office did it then. F1's doing it now. You actually don't see a lot of that anymore in film and television. Most of the time you're spoon-fed every little thing that's on screen, period. So yeah, anyway, continue.
Yeah, no, I think that's actually a really good way of putting it, is this movie does not spoon feed you things. This movie allows you to wonder and guess and doesn't feel the need to force feed you the answers. I think that's one thing that really made a lot of people not like the first part of the new Mission Impossible movie, is the first like 40 minutes of this Mission Impossible movie forces so much exposition and force spoon feeds you everything, thinking that you might have forgotten or pulling ties together. Granted, this movie is very different from that because it's not building off of 6 other movies and a whole lineage and things like that, but
it stands. Sure,
it still stands that it doesn't spoon feed you almost anything, and I love that. Even when we get the backstory of Sonny and things like that, it still does it in a way that makes sense. I love that the way that they reveal what happens was that Ruben picks up the medical chart when Sonny's in the hospital and starts reading off his injuries. And you're like, oh my God, he's never going to race again because these are all his current injuries. No, those are his injuries from his past race. And that's how they reveal that. That's how they get into that story. And they don't linger on his story more than they need to, because that helps show his character, but it isn't what is important. Correct. Like, we don't need that. Like, they do it in a sense of flashes of moments. You never flash into the moment. You see the moment in flashes, which, if you understand the difference, I think is a very big difference of when you flash into a moment versus when you see a moment in flashes. And that's how they tell Sonny's backstories. You see the moments in flashes, but you never really flash and live in that moment, because you don't need to get an understanding of why this is important.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree with you. I keep messing with my mic. I don't know why.
Yeah, I know you've done it multiple times this episode.
I'm just fidgeting with it. I don't know why. I'm just like, I'm just gonna mess with it. Well, it actually fell off, so I had to like readjust it on the desk. But like, I've just been like grabbing, like, I'm gonna pull it back. I'm gonna pull it forward. I'm gonna pull it back. I don't know. I don't know why. It's not like it's bothering anything, but I'm just like looking for something to fidget with. I'll grab my AirPod case and I'll just fidget with that for a bit. Oh my god, fidget spinners on the podcast, guys! If you want to see fidget spinners on the podcast, leave a comment, leave a like.
Our first piece of merch, if we ever make merch, will be a fidget spinner because of this moment.
It's a fidget spinner. It's a fidget spinner with, it's got our logo on one end. It's got our two faces on the other end. So if you spin it,
we're not doing that. I hate the idea now. I was actually going to do it now. Nope, never. That's never happening. Anyways, I think, again, another thing that I love about this movie is like the pit crew relationship, how we really spend a lot of time, because it is very important for a racer to have that relationship with their pit crew, because as important as the role of the driver is, the role of the strategist, the role of the designer of the car, the role of a single person changing your tire can make the difference of seconds, which is the difference between first place and last place. A lot of the time in these races is decided by seconds. And I love that they tell that, and they have the characters grow because they get better at their job because they care more. You can be good at your job all you want. If you don't care about your job, you're never putting in 100% of your effort. You're never going to care to put in 100% of your effort. And especially because you're coming into a team halfway through a season that has lost every single race. Like they've never even placed reasonably in any race. They're last of the pack. Their spirits are down. And I think that's what leads to mistakes like the dropping of the hand drill. It's not because she's necessarily bad at her job. Like, yes, there's elements to that, but she doesn't have a reason to get better because she already knows that maybe her being better isn't going to make the difference that's going to win the race. Them showing that there's potential in Sunny and JP trying harder encourages the team to try harder and gives them a reason to care and do better at their job and listen to each other and be more of a team. When in having those bonding exercises of running together is so crucial to any team activity, let alone something like F1, that I love those moments.
The crew generally in this film has the same arc as each and every other crew member. The difference is you actually, unlike Ironheart, unlike their crew, you care about this crew here. They actually give you a reason to care about this crew, and they give you moments. I think with almost every single one of them, just to like.
Well, it's so they give you moments with all the crucial ones. Like from the actual people changing your tires, the only one you get, I think her name is Jody, if I'm not mistaken, was the one that you like actually like see.
Let me rephrase that. You're not gonna get every single crew member. That'd be like 30 something people. That'd be an absurd amount of people to actually like, give time and development for. But for the people that matter, it's at least crucial. You get one person from at least each department. And what I mean is like,
you have the head of the pit crew, you have one pit crew member, you have the like basically the people at the table that are actually talking to Sunny and JP, things like that. And they really lean into the importance of those roles. And I think that's why you don't need every single person changing the tire. You just need one person from each area to represent the importance of that entire group of people.
You know that there's other people changing the tire.
Yep.
You know there's other people changing the tire. You know that they probably all feel the same way. You just need one person to explain that. And even with that one person, you understand. And that's why I'm saying you feel so connected with the entire crew, even if they are just nameless nobodies for the most part. And again, it's just something that the film does really well, is making you care about a crew of nameless people. And it's so expertly crafted. And I do have to give credit where credit's due for the writers for that. because cinematography, yeah, you can set up shots that'll make you care. Specifically, that is the writing. The writing did a really good job of setting up I'm going to call it a group arc, because it is technically a group arc. Everybody in that crew pretty much, learns the same thing, and they have an arc that's pretty much leading the same thing, or growth. Sorry, would you say the crew had an arc or had a growth?
I think that's another one that, again, it's growth. It's through the course of an arc, but they grow together. They grow to they find the reason to care. They don't get better at doing their job because they went to school to get better at their job. That's not why they're a better pit crew. They're better because they have a reason to care enough to get better.
Sure. Right.
And I think another thing in this movie that we haven't really talked about, I guess, is there isn't really, for most of this movie, there isn't really a villain in this movie. No. It's just the butting head. It's the ticking clock of like, oh, we're running out of money, we're gonna go out of business. Then they do introduce a villain into this movie, and I actually kind of like it. I do think it is one of the weaker parts, I will admit, but I still like it. I did not I still enjoyed every part of it. And that would be Peter Banning, which is played by Tobias Menzies, which is I was suspicious of him from the beginning. I don't know about you. I was suspicious of this guy from the beginning. He was the only stakeholder that they showed, which immediately drew suspicion for me to him.
Sure.
And then, of course, it's revealed that he leaked the documents. He has been there sabotaging at every step of the way. Things of that nature. And I do like how that added the additional level of suspense. I think a lot of it, though, the main purpose that he served wasn't even to add a villain to the story. It was to show Sonny's character growth, in the sense of he easily could have taken that money and run. Well, actually, let me backtrack that. It isn't to show Sonny's character growth. It's to show Sonny's character staying the same. Because if Sonny were to have changed, he would have taken that money. But Sonny growing, I guess it is growth. The difference between growth and if Sonny would have changed, he would have taken that money. But Sonny's growth, while still staying the same, is him not taking that money, standing on principle, and coming back and having the whole joke of ripping up his paycheck and be like, well, you now still owe me my last paycheck, so I'm still a member of this team, and things like that did help progress the movie and give it an additional level of suspense that you can argue isn't necessary, but I think is welcome. That's the difference between
there is a villain in this movie. I don't recognize him as a villain because I think the main point of this movie is the overcoming of the issue at hand.
Yeah. You don't need a person as a villain as much.
Right. I don't necessarily know. Like, technically he is the villain. He leaked all the information, this, that. Yeah. He is the villain, for lack of a better term.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't really, like, it does add, but also, like, at the end of the day, they're still overcoming the issue at the end. Like, he's the secondary villain to the main villain, which is the ongoing issue. That's the best way to look at it.
He's more of a catalyst, less of a villain, and more of a catalyst for the necessary story beats that are going to propel the story forward. Which I think is all that he needs to be. He is the catalyst of the documents leak and we have to change, which forces them to change their approach. He is the reason that Sonny got hired, which is what propels them to where they are now. Things of that nature yes, it makes him the villain, but it more makes him kind of like the representation of all of the bad that's happening.
It's funny because the best way it's like, so let's say that the ongoing issue is a massive forest fire, and the pit crew, Brad Pitt, JP, all of them, they're the firefighters trying to put out this lovely fire. And the the physical villain is a guy who's not pouring water, but he's got a little lighter. He's just pouring fuel onto the fire. That's his role in this movie.
Yeah,
he's making it worse.
He's the guy that threw the cigarette into the forest to start it, and then is after the problem is ballooned beyond him, he's now the person who's like, he squirts a little fuel in there every once in a while to make sure that the fire's still burning. But now the problem that he started is beyond him, and he is no longer needed to be the person pushing it forward. It has grown into its own villain of the concept of the fire. And in this sense, the concept of them being in danger of being shut down and things like that.
See, I don't know. I guess if you have a complaint with this movie, I could argue that that's probably the one complaint, is that the actual villain is weak, but that's not the point of the movie. So it draws an interesting line of like, is it really a complaint? Is it not? I don't really know.
Yeah,
it doesn't really matter at the end of the day, because it's not the point of the film. I'm gonna go ahead just because I don't have, unless you have more you want to talk about. I can go ahead and give my final thoughts on this.
Okay,
because
I think that's fair. I mean, I love this movie. I'm probably going to talk about this movie for a long time because I love this movie. But I think for now, like, we can go ahead and give our final thoughts and wrap this up because, like, I don't want to take forever. We're already a little over 2 hours into this. So,
no, it's just like, I'll let you wrap it up last because you have such a passion for it. I do too, but this was not a film I expected to be good. I actually remember expecting this movie the first time I saw a trailer to go, I actually went, that's probably going to be mediocre to bad. That may have been because Gran Turismo was just god awful. And then, you know, as more trailers came out, as more things came out and certain shots were released and I saw what they were actually doing, I was like, maybe I'll give it a chance. Watching this movie was very different. I walked out of this theater with my head held high, albeit tired, but my head was held high. The characters are incredible. The story is whereas it's generic, is so masterfully put together and crafted so beautifully that you don't care. And you actually forget that it's generic at certain points. And you are blown away. Like, again, the cinematography, like performances, it is just so well-rounded. It's so well put together. It is competition for the best film of the year. It is up there. It is one of the again, whereas that bar, like we said earlier, is very low right now. There's not a lot that's been really great
in typical years. Yeah,
it's very, very good, and I'm gonna see. It's gonna be really hard for a film to beat this out. In all honesty.
Yeah, no, I don't want to rehash like everything you just said and everything that I've said throughout the course, just because like I could go on and on about the same things because I just love this movie. But I really do think that if you watched the trailer for this movie and like Carson said, like my friend said, aren't don't think this is going to be good. Don't think that this movie is for you. Again, I don't think this movie is for everyone. I think that there is an audience that this movie is for, that audience being me and Carson and people who enjoy Top Gun Maverick. But I don't think that this movie is going to be the big, everyone needs to see this movie. I think that you should see this movie. I do think that more people should go out and see this movie. Again, honestly, there were more people in this theater watching F1 on a Thursday night than were in my Thunderbolt screening. Like, people are going out to see this movie, and I am very happy that people are going out to see this movie. The only other movie that for an early showing that I've gone to this year was Sinners. Sinners was a completely packed theater. This was a completely packed theater. I'm very glad that people are going out and seeing this movie. So just continue going to see this movie because I think it deserves it. I think the characters are phenomenal. I think the storytelling, I think the pacing is phenomenal. I think that there is even more that we didn't dive into, that there are just reasons to go see this movie. But if you walk out of this movie and do not think it is the best movie of the year, I think that is totally reasonable. I think that is just like with any movie, because I think there are people who walked into Sinners and did not think it was the best movie of the year. And I think that's something that we forget a lot. And the reason I bring it up with this is because I do truly believe that this is a phenomenal movie that is not going to appeal to an insanely broad audience.
Sure.
Just like I think Sinners was a very similar way. So yeah, I think that like generally like sums up my thoughts. Again, I could go on, but to end it here on this movie, I'm very very happy that this movie was what it was and that I watched this movie. And again, not to rehash this, but I am very, very grateful that we started this podcast, even if no one's listening, to give me a reason to go out and see movies like this. And again, I haven't talked about Phoenician Scheme all that much. I loved Phoenician Scheme, and I'm very glad that I can go out and see movies like this, even if obviously I'm still paying for them, but giving me a reason to be happy that I am paying for them.
Well, and also just, you know, with the podcast, you getting to talk about those thoughts. Like, yeah, you could have always talked with them about me and one of your friends. You actually get to get your thoughts out there, which is something that's really, really nice, because now you don't feel so. This is what my mind was whenever we first started this podcast, was I feel so cramped. Like, nobody ever hears what I have to say. At least I can just get it out here. Yeah. Nobody has to listen, but at least it's out there.
Yeah, well, and I think that's the other thing of like it forces me to think about movies so differently in a way that I am enjoying, because it forces some people don't enjoy thinking about movies analytically. Some people just want to go and have fun when they watch a movie. I think that is that is the majority of people. I think that is very understandable. And granted, me and Carson are not the best people at talking about movies. We are still growing in our understanding of movies. We're not filmmakers. Carson is an actor. I'm not. But we can still bring our own ideas in thoughts about these movies to the table. And I love that even if no one's listening, we're able to get those thoughts out there and force ourselves to not only see new movies, but think about them in a way that we might not have previously. Because I don't want to just sit here and granted, again, we're not the best at talking about these movies. We're going to grow over time, because I hope to do this for a long ass time, even if no one's listening. But we're going to get better. And I think that every single episode is a testament to that. On watching episode 1 and how we talked about things versus how we talk about things now, and how I analyze movies when I'm watching them, I'm very happy with that. I think yeah.
No, I love that you love this movie. And I think that's I love that you're even saying that right now, because dude, cut back to high school us, man. The Marvel movies are the greatest thing ever. You know, how does it get better than that? Oh, it does. It gets a whole lot better once you expand your roster and expand your mind.
And that's why like the name Nerdy Nimrods is such like a testament. There's no like there's nothing that locks us into anything. It's just anything nerdy. And to me, movies and analyzing movies is nerdy. It doesn't have to be a Marvel movie. We're not the Marvel podcast. We're not the DC podcast. We're not the movie podcast. We're not the TV podcast. We're the Nerdy Nimrods, which is why we talk about things like the video games. We've talked about video games. We've talked about movies. I talk about anime all the time on short form. In fact, after we get done recording, I have 2 episodes of anime to watch that is going to go up in a short later tonight. Like
after we hop off this recording, I'm going downstairs and watching Night of Champions. It started at 1. I completely forgot it did. WWE, baby, let's go.
Yeah, there you go. And Carson, you should talk more about. I'm gonna tell you this now on the podcast while we're talking. Start recording some stuff for WWE. Let's get it up. If you want to post shorts of talking about WWE, or you want to bring that up. I know I'm not into WWE, but you're also not into anime. If you want to do that, let's do that. Let's talk about the things we love more. That's all I want to do, honestly. Like I am so engaged with this because I just want to be able to talk about the things that I love more. And honestly, like we don't get a ton of views on things on our short form. We do get quite a few. We do get like we have a few multi-thousand view videos and things like that. But I love the fact that even though these aren't interactive platforms necessarily. We get comments on TikTok that I can respond to and have conversations with. I've had full conversations with people in TikTok comments about like anime or things that we've watched that I just love having, because otherwise I'd be talking to Carson about it, or I'd be talking with really no one else, because like my friends aren't as into all that stuff. They don't keep up with it as much as I do.
Well, folks, you heard it here. Next week, we're talking about the entire history of WWE as the main topic. Join us next.
Well, I guess we're not. Actually, a good segue. A good segue.
No, I was going to get that. Next week, we're finishing up our Ironheart conversation, and we're talking about the new Jurassic World movie, Jurassic World Rebirth.
Yep.
Next week, I will give another 3-minute review for Ironheart, and I will also not be reviewing Jurassic World. I'll be reviewing Jurassic Park, which, is a classic. I love that film. And just switch it up, change it up a little bit. It gives my mind a bit more time to breathe. To be fair, before deciding that I was going to do an F1 short, I literally wanted to do a Cars short. And I said, nope, that's stupid. Let me just talk about F1.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Any final thoughts, Brandon?
I think I've rambled enough for this episode.
There you go.
That's my final thoughts.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Nerdy Nimrods podcast. If you like what you saw, if you like what you heard, give us a like, give us a follow, subscribe to the channel. You can find us on all streaming platforms such as Amazon Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere and everywhere. I promise you will find us. You can follow us at Nerdy Nimrods on all social media platforms. And once again, guys, stay nerdy.